keep a bottle close at hand. And surprisingly, despite its many uses, it's not on Saudi Arabia's prohibited list. So everyone's soap up. I was mesmerized by the multiple, when I was in the Middle East at one time, it was before 9/11, you couldn't even bring up a cell phone or a camera into Saudi Arabia.
Oh, no.
I was mesmerized by the multiple usages, but was smart enough even then to know that despite its useful nature, the political rantings of Dr. Bronner's manifesto was BS. Hopefully, the millennial fascination stops at the doctor's cleansing properties. Certainly, listening to the No Agenda show, a.k.a. the best podcast in the universe, is an antidote enough to counter any of these multi-purpose, more corrosive effects, which he's talking about the messaging on there. It's a bunch of communist stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's to another year of No Agenda, continued presence of the cornerstone of my amygdala management program. May we, the No Agenda community cult, find blessings abundant in the new year. You give some.
I like the amygdala management program, also known as AMP. Kind of like that.
Amygdala management. AMP. Yeah, AMP. Yeah, AMP. It's perfect.
Amygdala management program.
Got a lot of amps going on.
Yes, for sure.
Give me some.
Yeah, karma from both of us, and for Isabella and Melody.
You've got karma.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Sir Pipkin of the Space Coast in Louisville, Texas, 20202. ITM. Happy New Year's, gentlemen. I beg you for a dose of contract buyout negotiation karma. I could really use it. Please feel free to edit for brevity. I would add my input to the ongoing dissection of millennials and our sad idiosyncrasies. I'm a 28-year-old full attack developer.
No, full stack.
Full attack.
Full stack.
Full stack. He's a full stack guy. Full stack guy. Full stack guy. Full stack developer in Irving, Texas. John hit me in the mouth through Twit more than a decade ago. I've never heard of anyone using Venmo to pay their bills, but is widely used as a replacement for cash. I've only seen it. That's right. Venmo is a millennial thing. Well, I don't have it on the list. I'll put it on the list.
We talked about it because Venmo had an outage and people were freaking out because they could not pay their bills. They definitely pay bills with it.
Yeah.
Fact.
I've only seen it ever being used with Dr. Bronner's grandma pine tar soap for years. Extensive use of subtitles is, oh yes, that's another one. Subtitles. Too real. As a small get-together. I talked about this. Nick, Jay's fiance. I said, I come in the TV room. He's there watching something, and it's got the subtitles on. I said, subtitles? There's subtitles. He claims... He's a musician. He claims that the subtitles are on because their sound is poorly mixed.
John, we've only talked about this for 50 days subsequently. I don't know why it's coming back up.
As a small get-together of millennials, a girl asked I'm reading again, to turn on the subtitles because she couldn't understand the Boston accents of The Departed. Wow. I wouldn't allow it. Adam, I owe you a report on my experience with companies that prey on the people who have fallen prey to the everyone can code BS. Yours in exile. Sir Pipkin.
So two things. One, yes, we've discussed quite extensively the abundant millennial use of subtitles. A lot of this is because of distracted second screens. A lot of it is definitely because of the 5.1 sound mix that is being jammed through a shitty-ass sound bar. That's another issue, big problem. In fact, maybe one of the main ones. And there's also a cognition issue that is taking place because people are so used to reading little short bits of text. It's just like a tweet. Each of these subtitle cards that pops up, people are losing the actual ability to translate sound into something that they can recognize in their brain. We're all going to be deaf eventually. We'll just be reading subtitles everywhere.
Well, what's interesting to me is not understanding the really mild Boston accent or any Boston accent. It's not that hard.
Well, I think another problem is when you're not exposed to accents. You see this a lot with Love Island UK, which was really big during the season, which is a stupid reality show, but everyone's speaking in a very British accent, very slangish as well. And it's you got to focus and listen. And having lived there, I know a lot of the slang. But I think when people use crutches continuously, then you lose the ability to understand what someone's saying through an accent or even in a different language. I can hear someone speak in any language and I can pretty much pick out what they mean if it's a simple thing, just because I've been around language and I've had to decode it by listening to it. I think you lose that ability. The brain is very good. You're very good at parsing stuff. If you have some exposure to some, maybe a little bit of French might help, a little bit of Spanish. You can understand a lot of different languages, but not if you're just always reading a translation or a subtitle. I think you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it.
Onward. So did he want any karma? Give him a little karma for all that work.
You've got karma.
Which brings us to Sir Schwartz, $202. And he says, "Forgive me, Podfather, for I have douched. Please accept this humble donation. All I wish is a de-douching."
You've been de-douched.
And he wants some divorce karma.
Ooh.
But hey, life is great, and when you keep debunking the corporate media, it makes it even better, Sir Schwartz.
You've got karma.
Thank you very much, Sir Schwartz. Sorry to hear that.
And finally, we got Anonymous from Brooklyn, New York with $200 and no note, and Ryan Black from Waukesha, North Carolina with no note. I can do a quick look up on him to see if he's in there.
I thought I recalled something from Ryan Black coming in. Now, we don't know because Eric the Shill may have not been able to put everything into our spreadsheet because of the lack of a microgrid. Let's just call it what it is. He needs a microgrid up there. You should get that installed.
All right, let's see what we got here. Ryan Black. Here it is.
There you go.
Right there. Payment received from Ryan Black. Okay. Hello, Noah Jello. This is just a thing from No, this is just a...
It's just a receipt?
Just a receipt, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, we would like to thank these executive producers and our associate executive producers for episode 1205 of the No Agenda Show. I was looking through some of the profiles on LinkedIn. You should see Nussbaum's profile. Talking about putting one of these credits into your LinkedIn profile. Yeah. Nussbaum and Melanson. Oh, man, Melanson, he has a LinkedIn profile that lists every single No Agenda show he's been an executive producer of. He put, all the different specials. It's all in there. And this guy, you can look him up, very successful in his field. Extremely successful in technology. And I attribute a lot of that to the titles he puts into his LinkedIn profile. That's what gets you hired. Ask him about it. I'm sure he'll agree. So, yes?
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't cost anything.
It's free.
Yeah, you can put anything you want in there on that LinkedIn profile. You can load up, and that's what he did.
He really did load up. Check him out. But above all, know that you have contributed towards keeping the show on for yet another episode. We've been doing it for 12 years. We hope to do it for at least a couple more. I don't know about 12 more. I don't know if we'll live 12 more years. But, man, do I love my job. I got to tell you, I wake up Thursdays and Sundays. I don't always know what day it is, but I love my job because I know that I get to do this, and you've made it possible. You, all producers of Gitmo Nation, and thank you. And remember, we'll do it again on Thursday. Please consider us at
Dvorak.org/NA.
And you can tell everybody you know what's going on with Soleimani. Wag the dog!
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth. Order! Order!
Yay! Shut up, Slade!
goat slipped in there.
There was the other big story, in my opinion, which wasn't covered as much, but I thought was much more intriguing, is the Ghosn story.
Now, this is the automobile executive who was, I guess, he was kicked out of his job and arrested. He was in house arrest, and he was going to come forward on some unspecified financial shenanigans charges. Which I looked and tried. The only thing I could find, and maybe you have an answer here in these clips, is that he was planning a merger at Le Moment Suprême. Hold on. Are you back?
That was weird.
No, it's your setup. It's not weird. It's just what it is.
No. On my side, I've never heard this before in my life.
Okay, I'll go back and ask the question again. Ready?
Go.
Or the question, I'll make my statement. From what I understand, the only thing that was a problem was his apparent wish to have a merger between Nissan and Renault. Is that right?
No, there's more to it than this.
What is
story is
going
really
on?
interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to know what's happening.
Let's play a couple of clips, and then I'll discuss what I think is going on.
Okay.
This play, Ghosn through Turkey 1.
So far, what Turkey has said is that it has launched an investigation. The Istanbul prosecutor's office is looking into it now, and they have detained 7 people, as you mentioned, 4 of them pilots. 1 is a manager at a private aviation company, as well as 2 ground staff service workers. So the Istanbul police now is going to be going through their testimony, trying to piece together what happened. And what we know about this mystery, this puzzle, is that there was a flight that took off from Osaka, Japan, and landed in Istanbul. A little while later, another flight took off from Istanbul and went to Beirut. That all coinciding with the timeline of Ghosn's mysterious disappearance back to Beirut. And the Istanbul police now are trying to figure out what happened on the ground in Istanbul's Atatürk Airport. That's not Istanbul's main international airport. It was decommissioned just a while ago and now only services cargo planes and private jets like the one that Ghosn is suspected of having fled on. Maybe some of the testimony that the Turkish police gather from these 7 detained suspects will shed light on the mystery of what's happening. And the the Interpol, the red notice that has been issued, is basically going to make it a bit more of an international issue for Ghosn, but there is no extradition between Lebanon and Japan, so the likelihood of him being returned to Japan is very low. And that Interpol red notice, of course, is just a request to international law enforcement, and it's not an order. So what will happen, what will come out of that, is something we just don't know at this point. But we do know that here in Turkey, at least, one small part of the puzzle now is in the hands of the Istanbul police, and perhaps they will be able to shed some light on how Ghosn got away.
Again, everyone focusing on how he got away instead of why he had to get away in the first place. Hello? Okay, I'm calling this I'm stopping the tape. Hello? In the first
I'm going to
place.
I'm going to switch networks now.
Yeah, you should.
It's going to be seamless, so you don't have to worry.
Some light on how Ghosn got away.
Again, everyone focusing on how he got away instead of why he had to get away in the first place.
I'm going to switch networks.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you. I'm just queuing up. I'm just queuing up the tape.
Oh, you got me queued up. Okay, here we go. This is going to be seamless. In fact, I'll give a countdown to my.
Honestly, the joke is pretty old. This is now the second month where we're doing this seamless switching. We need this fixed.
Well, I'm going from network to network, and what can I do? What can I do?
Get service. Call customer service.
I did that. Their solution is reboot the router.
Open a ticket. Fix it. Pay your bill. Move to Austin. Has the seamless transition completed yet? So seamless. Call Leo. A Mux, man. Get a Mux. Ooh, seamless. Yeah, Skype over ham. Oh, yeah, that's really, really smart, Cold Acid. Well, this is not very seamless today. This is the non-seamless version.
Turn down your speakers!
I'm surprised anybody even likes me. I hear the zephyr coming. See if I can turn that into a song. The zephyr coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. It's coming, 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 it's coming. Is electrifying my balls.
Hello?
Seamless.
Yeah, I'm blown away. It's really fantastic.
Apparently, the reboot of the other router didn't sync.
Oh.
So I had to reboot it again, so that's what it took so long.
The other router? Oh.
Sorry?
You're running everything on this power line thing?
There's no power line thing whatsoever.
What's the other router then?
This is the Comcast router.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I personally think the reason why this is happening is you need to clean up your office.
The office is clean as a whistle.
Then why can't I see it? Okay. Let me show you where we're going to pick this up. Again, everyone focusing on how he got away instead of why he had to get away in the first place. So that's after your clip, and you can pick it up and go ahead.
Yes. In fact, there's a bunch of crazy stories about this, which is like he was put in a double bass cello case and hauled out of there and all the rest of it. And then there's another story where he escaped his house. What happened was he was actually in jail. So let's start there.
I thought he was under house arrest.
He was in jail, and then he had a lawyer that begged and begged and begged. There was no reason to keep this guy in jail. He should go to his house, and they can keep him there under house arrest and under surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave him bail and let him go home. And supposedly, one of the stories is he was the cello case, which makes no sense, but it's funny. The other one, he put on a mask and a hat and a beard and just walked out of there and went straight to the airport and took off under this elaborate surveillance. I'm thinking, first of all, they wanted to. This is an embarrassment to the Japanese.
But what you kind of? I thought you promised me you're going to tell me why. Why
he understated his income tax.
That's the reason why?
That's the main reason why. And then they started digging into it. And apparently the company, they lied about how much they paid him. And it's all about income. And so then the company wasn't making a lot of money. They didn't know what to do with this guy. They wanted to get him out. And I believe the following. This guy was trying to orchestrate, and there was a fallout between Renault and Nissan. Because the Japanese can't work with the French.
Let's be fair. Nobody can work with the French, really.
So that didn't work out, and Nissan was losing. They weren't losing money; they were still in a profitable company, but they weren't making the billions and billions they're supposed to make because Toyota's making all the money. I think the following: they didn't want this guy to stand trial, and he still claims he's going to spill the goods on Nissan, and maybe it's a corrupt organization. He claims he's going to have a press conference and tell all. But they had to get rid of him. They couldn't bring him up to trial, so they let him walk out of there. Oh, he's got a mask and yeah, you can go.
Because the embarrassment of whatever was happening with the merger or not happening with the merger, or what kind of crap might show
what's going on with Nissan.
Oh, okay.
And also the one I think is even more primary, the Japanese, and you can talk to people who have been involved in the 80s, especially when the Japanese were kicking everybody's butt economically, and there was a riot. We should all do what the Japanese do, because the Japanese economy is going to kill us. They're so much better than we are.
Sony was going to own the world. I remember it. Once the Walkman came out, we were like, that's it. They got Betamax. They got the Walkman. They're going to own all of us.
So the Japanese, if anyone has worked for a Japanese company in the United States during that era, there were these things called the death buses. And I had a guy explain it to me in great detail.
The death buses.
Yeah. You'd be running a Japanese operation here in the United States. It was mostly Americans. And then once you started making profit, you weren't getting profitable and everything was going well, the so-called death buses would come in. And these were your replacements.
Oh, who you had to train.
Yeah, all Japanese.
Right.
So the death buses. So the Japanese do not like. And remember Stringer, that guy who ran the Sony
the Sony Music Group or the Entertainment Group, yeah.
The Japanese do not like to be shown up by foreigners.
Right. Huh.
So they have a guy running one of their basic major companies, Nissan Motors, and they didn't like. I think they just didn't like this guy because he was probably moving them in a direction that was not Japanesey enough, and they railroaded him, and then finally got him out of town. He got himself out of town, and he's going to talk about it eventually. But this whole thing stinks. And yeah, the guy does look a little like Mr. Bean, and the whole story, this spooky story, is kind of interesting.
Could this somehow also be related to another merger with I think it's Peugeot and Citroën? Is it not Peugeot and Citroën who are merging? I just heard this the other day.
Well, that could be, but this would have nothing to do with it. This is a Renault, which is different
than
it's Peugeot French. Or Citroën.
But it's French,
and it was French Renault, and now it looks as though the deal that was going to come down. It looked like this guy was still there. Was that since the Renault thing wasn't working out, it looked as if Chrysler, which is privately owned, was going to buy Nissan and Renault and do the whole thing itself out of town.
Right, but now we have Chrysler agreeing to merge with Peugeot and Citroën.
Yeah, well, they gave up on this because there's something up, and it's got to do with the Japanese culture. And I think they didn't like this guy. He ran him out of town. He's introducing foreign ideas. I don't know, but the whole thing is suspect. And he escaped. They let him escape. There's no way he was going to get past the surveillance and all the rest of it. So, and now the story still continues to unfold. I just thought it was the funnier story of the two.
What's in the second clip?
The second clip is it's more of the same. You can play it out.
Yay.
On that Carlos Ghosn investigation, now reports just out in Lebanon say the government has received an Interpol arrest warrant for Carlos Ghosn. Now, the former Nissan chairman arrived in Lebanon on Tuesday after jumping bail in Japan, where he was awaiting trial. Meanwhile, police in Turkey have detained 7 people, including 4 pilots and a private airline, on suspicion of helping Ghosn escape. Gul Tasuz now is live for us in Istanbul with the latest. Gul, look, the plot thickens here. Turkey is demanding answers. We now have this Interpol alert. Do officials there have any idea how Turkey was implicated? It's clear, Gul, that certainly Ghosn thinks he's free and clear now, especially as he remains in Lebanon. He will likely speak to the media in the next few days. But in the meantime, the Japanese are trying to piece this together as well. So embarrassing for them, considering this was supposed to be a man who was under surveillance.
Absolutely. This is quite an embarrassment for the Japanese. This was a very high-profile individual for them, and their legal system was working to basically bring him to justice. And instead of that happening, he's now fled in this audacious escape, and we don't have a lot of answers for it, but Ghosn is expected to speak. And so far, what he said has been very, very critical of the Japanese justice system. He's called it rigged. He said that it's discriminatory. So all in all, a very embarrassing moment for Japan. And at this point, now that he's in Lebanon, there isn't much that they can do to bring this man to justice in front of their own legal system.
Well, regardless of what's happening here, and it seems like the media is only focusing on his escape and how he escaped, and did he get into a musical instrument case, or did he take covert chartered jet flights? But no one's focusing on the real news. And I thought, honestly, from your tease in the newsletter, I thought we'd get a little bit more about what actually is going on with this guy and with Nissan and this supposed merger or failed merger. But there's another backdrop, and that is that Japan is now our ally in the Strait of Hormuz, and they're moving their fleet in there. So maybe there's some embarrassment that's taking place.
I don't know if there's any connection at all. This guy, by the way, should be mentioned that he's kind of spooky. He's got passports from France.
Yeah, he has 3 or 4 different passports.
Lebanon, and he's got a passport from Brazil.
Yeah.
Which is another place, if you want to go hide out somewhere, we should all have extradition with everyone.
We should all have a Brazilian passport. I think you and I both should have one just in case. Well, you inspired me on the previous show with your retrospectives and actually it was 2 shows ago, the big stories of 2019. And I wanted to follow that up, and I was actually planning on peppering this throughout today's episode, but we're already halfway through. Here are some of the big stories that were not recapped at the end of 2019. The one that you mentioned specifically, and I think really these would go as the big media missers of 2019. Let's just remember how accurate your M5M stations were in the past year. We start with the story that no one wants to talk about anymore, Jussie Smollett.
Empire star Jussie Smollett was the victim of a vicious, racist, and homophobic attack. His attackers hurled racial and homophobic slurs.
Not only homophobia, we're talking about racism. We're talking about hate with steroids.
They are looking for 2 suspects who were apparently wearing Make America Great Again hats.
The offenders uttered, "This is MAGA country."
This is stomach-turning, mind-boggling information.
Oh, this is a horrible story.
Yeah. Horrendous and unacceptable.
And this is America in 2019.
So let me see. Did they get that one right, John? That Jussie Smollett story? Were they right on the money with that?
Wrong.
Let's try another one. How about the Covington High School kids with the Native American war hero?
Outrage over this now viral video showing high school teenagers harassing a Native American elder.
The Native American man who was beating the drum, Nathan Phillips, and those kids in the Make America Great Again hats that were kind of smirking at him and kind of looking down their noses at him.
As one smirking high school student blocks the elder's path.
The video appears to show dozens of youths wearing Make America Great Again hats, mocking Native American elder and Vietnam veteran Nathan Phillips.
A veteran, a Native American
man was, had a standoff with students who were, mocking him.
We feel that President Trump is giving license to some of this behavior.
Let me see. Were they right about that one, John? About the kids smirking and were they? No? Wrong. Joe Biden likes to touch people, sniff their hair, especially children. Let's remind ourselves how the media handled this story when people first started to get creeped out by him.
He's very affectionate. I find oddly affectionate. He kisses people on the mouth. He shouldn't. He's always touching people's shoulders.
I've seen him rub the shoulders of women and men.
Joe Biden calls them expressions of affection.
He is an affectionate, old-school politician.
He's a really nice, generous, funny, connecting guy.
Uncle Joe, as we affectionately call him, he's a very affectionate, very likable person. He's just an affectionate guy.
I've known Joe Biden a long time, as have many others, and have always found him a very emotional man who is very, very affectionate.
He's touchy-feely. He's been doing it his entire life in an affectionate way.
I think the next time I see Joe Biden, if he doesn't hug me and give me a kiss and hold my hand, that's not the Joe Biden I knew. He's a nice guy. He's not a predator. And this is ridiculous.
So, do they still talk like that about Joe, or are they a little more creeped out about it now? This is why you listen and why you help produce the No Agenda Show. Because this is the bull crap that the media puts into your head 24 hours a day, if you allow it, and it goes through your eardrums, into your brain processing, and then swells up your amygdala. And then you become insane. Let's check another one. Remember the Trump meme where he was shooting all the media, was killing them, which was from the movie, what movie was that? In the Church? What was that again? Did you just walk away? You just walked away. You just walked away from the show.
I did.
It's like here I am. I'm looking for my wingman. It's like he's just gone.
Because you are introducing something. I had to go get a sheet of paper from the desk, and then you threw it to me for some unknown reason. Because I don't know the movie.
Kingsman. Yes, you do. Kingsman.
Oh, Kingsman. Yeah, I never got to see the second one.
Well, but you remember the meme where they had all the mainstream media logos on the people in the church, and Trump was there with his head killing them all in the church.
Right.
This video, do you remember how horrible that was? How it was going to kill everybody in the media?
Yeah.
So this insanely disturbing fake video was shown at a conference of you-know-who supporters.
It's about so much more than a single video. It's about a president and his supporters who are sowing seeds of hate and division.
There's something very ugly at the heart of Trumpism, and we saw that in this video.
It's vile. It's horrific.
Some of his supporters would think this might even be somehow funny.
There are real people's bodies and lives on the line.
How easy for all of you judging me that I'm offended and upset by the video. You try doing this when some member of your family is continued to have this happen over and over and over again.
Now, did anyone from the media die? Anyone assassinated?
No,
not happened. Did anyone at the end of 2019 wrap up the Mueller report about how right the media was and how spot on they were with their analysis?
Oh, you mean how it was that he was doomed because of the Mueller report?
Is going to be delivering what I think are going to be his indictments, the final indictments.
This is suborning perjury. I think there's no question it's an impeachable offense.
And at that point, we are in high crimes and misdemeanor, and we are in impeachment territory.
Right. The spirit of what Trump did is clearly treasonous. There's outright treason.
I think he's feeling the noose around his neck.
The noose is tightening. He feels the noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening.
People might go to jail
You're exactly right.
for the rest of their lives.
I think they're all going to jail. Well, I think they're all going to end up together in prison, and maybe that's a good thing. Oh, my God.
He has no idea that he's going down.
The investigation is over, and according to a senior DOJ official, there will be no further indictments. How can they let Trump off the hook?
Did everyone go to jail? Were the indictments imminent? Was the Mueller report of any significance? No.
Apparently not. Now,
I have one more. Last one.
Okay.
Last one. This has got to be my favorite because it's been years since they first laid this smack on us, and it's good to remember how incredibly wrong the media was about the Steele dossier.
Parts of the now infamous dossier on Trump have proven to be true.
Your intel community has corroborated all of the details in there.
When the president just refers to it as fake dossier, that is false.
I don't think that is an accurate characterization.
Investigators have corroborated part of the dossier.
We do know that parts of it have been corroborated.
It's not been corroborated, but it hasn't been disproven.
No major thing from the dossier has been conclusively disproven.
To date, none of it has been disproven, and whole big parts of it are holding up.
The dossier holds up well.
It's a fact that none of it, not one word, has been disproven. In fact, a lot of it turned out to be right on the money.
The FBI would not have just taken a dossier to the FISA court and used that as their predicate for the surveillance. They had to corroborate it themselves. That's how they operate.
So if you're wondering, or someone in your family is wondering why you listen to this podcast, that's why. And I'm sure we can do the same thing with this Iran, Iraq, Soleimani thing at the end of this year.
You know, the funny thing about that dossier story is that although we didn't document it specifically, is the way the dossier story kept changing and morphing in regards to the FISA court.
Yes.
When they first came out, they said, well, it wasn't that important to our FISA, request.
Yeah. And
then it became important to the FISA. Then it apparently was the only thing that the FISA request was based on was the dossier. This dossier was I don't understand how it got as far as it did, because it was just look phony from the get-go. It stunk. I mean, it just didn't smell.
Part of that
passed the smell test.
I might get a clip for Thursday. It's an interview with the author of the book. I think it's the plot to bring down an American president. Forget exactly what the title of the book is. And this guy has done all the research, and his assertion is that the dossier was not used for the FISA warrant application. It was written specifically for the FISA warrant application by slipping in one or two very pertinent lines, which literally say Trump is compromised by a foreign power. And that line, but that was written in specifically.
Oh, that's interesting.
Nothing,
that would make sense.
That it's exactly reversed. That the Steele dossier was not the genesis of the warrant, but they knew they wanted to get this warrant, so they created this through Steele, and there's lots of implications as to who was complicit in writing this. But anyway, I digress.
I'm reminded. This is one I just ran into because I was going through some of my old files, and I forgot about it. This was from a year earlier, and this was classic because everybody bought into this. And they bought into it hook, line, and sinker, and they've all since forgotten about it. Donald Trump's Gorilla Channel. Donald Trump liked to watch television, but he was...
The Gorilla Channel. You're right. I forgot about that.
He had to watch gorillas. And so they created a fake channel for him so he could watch gorillas. And so as he watched the gorillas, he's always bitching and moaning about they weren't fighting enough.
The gorilla. Yes.
And so everybody passed this around as fact. Donald Trump and the Gorilla Channel.
That's to me a good one.
The epitome of the stupidity of the left and the basic audience out there that are suckers for this sort of thing. And that was promulgated by everybody. There was a lot of TV stories on it, and it was all over the network and they're the internet.
Yeah.
But the Gorilla Channel, yeah. A classic.
Do we have any clips about that? I'm sure we...
Probably. They go back probably 2017.
I don't see anything offhand. I should probably put together a little compilation of that, of the Gorilla Channel. That was hilarious. That was... The Russian pranksters, as they're known, I prefer to call them the podcasters, Vovan and Lexus, they struck again. Now, previously, they had gotten through to Congressman Adam Schiff's office, claiming that they had compromat and compromising pictures of Trump. If you remember, we had some of that phone call. And these guys, they're like radio guys, like weenie in the butt of Moscow. So they have a new gambit. and they went after Maxine Waters and pretending to be Greta Thunberg and Greta's dad. And they made up this, they made up the name of an island, Changa Changa. I think that's literally what it's called. And they decided they're going to call into Maxine Waters' office, get her on the phone, and say, well, listen, Maxine, it's Greta and Greta's dad. And we're here in, I think it's, what did they say? They were South Carolina. And, we're here to garner support to save the island of Changa Changa. And could you please help us out? We'll put you on speakerphone. And I pulled the pertinent clip from this YouTube video. And, this used to be what Americans did. We used to be the fun phone pranksters. We've let Russia grab that away from us.
Congresswoman? Yeah. I have Greta and her father, Svante, on the line.
Thank you very much.
Congresswoman, this is Svante, Greta's father. And here's Greta.
Yes.
Hello,
on the line.
Waters. Hello, I'm very happy to talk to you.
Well, thank you both for calling me, and I'm very anxious to hear from you.
Yes, I know that yours called you Aunt Maxine. That's so sweet, I think. Is that true?
Brilliant. Butter her up first by calling her Auntie Maxine. She'll love that. Butter her up. Very good. By the way, these guys sound nothing like Swedish Greta and her dad, but still Maxine is falling for it.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, that's so nice. We have a wonderful climate strike to support the ecology of Chunga Changa Island. Thousands of people came to meet me.
Well, thank you, and I'm so glad you came to my state. And, of course, I know all about you. You have made quite a big thunder on this issue. I am really, really very proud of you and the work that you're doing.
We're now in North Carolina. So we are in a climate strike here in a meeting.
Okay. So you're in the meeting now? The meeting has started?
Yes, already.
Yes. We're there now. We're here now at the meeting, and if you will allow me, I will put you on a speakerphone. So yes.
And we will let you say to people who is around here.
Which island are they targeting?
This is the part I like the best. All these politicians are like that. It's like, if I can get anything out of you, and of course, typically these calls are about money, but right now it's like, oh shit, I can align myself with Greta Thunberg. This is fantastic. This is good for me. And they can roll out some bullcrap script just right off the cuff. Even Maxine, and she's up there in age, but she's still, she's a pro at rolling it out. So she has a little bit of information. She knows it's North Carolina. She knows it's Greta, who's a thunder, apparently. She knows it's Chunga Changa Island, which doesn't exist, and she's going to do a little promo.
So, yes.
And we will let you say to people who is around here.
Which island are they targeting?
Chunga Changa.
Chunga Changa?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. This is Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and I am so pleased to be on this telephone call with Greta Thunberg. I am just so proud.
I think she says Thunberg, which is Thunberg, which is a new one for us.
So pleased
yeah, let me write that one
to
down.
be on this telephone call with Greta Thunberg. I am just so proud of her and her father, Svante Thunberg, and the work that they are doing. As you know, Greta is an environmental activist, and she took part in the United Nations Climate Summit in New York recently, and she has been traveling, and she has been the greatest advocate for what is happening with our climate and the environment. And I'm very pleased that she's with you in North Carolina, where you're focusing on protecting the very important island of Chunga Changa.
I'm so happy she's supporting the critically important island of Chimichanga. You, Greta Thunberg, and your dad, Devante Thunberg. Come on. Well, I believe these two comrades deserve a medal for this work. This is really very good.
Well, let's give them this clip of the day.
Yeah, I wonder what that. We should do a Russian version so we can so they'll know how good they were. Clip of the day, comrade.
Now both of them sound like a couple of Russians, which made it even more ludicrous.
It's a 15-minute call. There's more in it, but I thought that was the funniest one, especially the Thudberg. What a moron!
Now that should be on the normal news, don't you think?
Yes, it should be, but no, we can't.
It's a member of Congress so stupid to fall for this. I mean, if she was keeping up with anything, she knows that Greta boogie back to home base. And she's not in North Carolina. She didn't go to North Carolina after the event in New York.
No.
The whole thing is just ludicrous, and it should be regular news. That's regular news story.
I agree.
But no, because the news media is so fraught with Democrat left-wingers, just to be honest about it. They can't bring themselves to do these stories.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it makes it look so stupid. I refuse to run that story. Wow.
Hey, we did have kind of a crappy story here in Austin on Friday. Was it Friday or Saturday morning? We had a stabbing. One person died on South Congress. I mean, really, like 10 minutes from my house. Let me see if there's a... So here's what happens. It's at a burrito joint, and this is right on Riverside and South Congress. This is really where I've lived for a lot of the years in Austin, this general area. And so first there was an altercation in a coffee shop. Then this 27-year-old suspect he was detained by people because he was harassing a woman. So there were civilians, I think, and they detained him. The guy broke loose. The cops arrived. The cops run after him. The cops can't catch him. He runs into the burrito joint, stabs two people, wounding one cook there fatally. Then he runs up onto the roof and swan dives while the cops are trying to, are ordering him to come down. He swan dives off the roof onto his head, and people could hear his neck bones cracking. He's in critical condition, and of course, in the hospital, but in custody. And you know what people in Austin think right away is, who is this guy? Everyone thinks he's homeless or transient. That sparked an immediate row between the governor of Texas, Abbott, and the mayor of Austin, Mayor Adler. And Abbott tweeted, there we go, 21st century diplomacy. He tweeted and said, holy crap, I'll bet you this guy was homeless. Once again, the mayor of Austin is not protecting the people who put him in office. And then our mayor turns around and tweets back, how dare you, how very dare you assume it was a homeless person? Or as he would say, how dare you assume it was a person experiencing homelessness? And, of course, it turns out that that's exactly what it was.
Tonight, Austin police say the man accused of carrying out a deadly stabbing attack Friday is homeless. That information being shared as the governor continues his attack on Austin's policies toward people living on the streets. He most recently tweeted today, quote, the city's top job is public safety, and they are failing. KXAN's Caitlin Carmoot talked to Austin's mayor, who's pushing back.
People realize that there's not a link between homelessness and criminality. That's like suggesting that all immigrants are rapists. It is just not true, and it is harmful.
This is Mayor Adler's response to Governor Abbott's tweets. We talked to him while he's in a New York hospital waiting for his daughter to give birth. He felt it necessary to respond to the governor's attacks on Austin policies towards homeless people. This comes after a 27-year-old man attacked 3 people at a South Congress shopping center, killing 1. Shortly after, Governor Abbott suggested that the suspect would likely be a homeless person. Mayor Adler called that suggestion irresponsible. And today, APD confirmed the suspected killer is homeless. Today, Governor Abbott had a series of tweets suggesting that the city must ensure its homeless policies doesn't endanger innocent people. The Mayor Adler's response:
most of the crimes in this city are not committed by people experiencing homelessness. So to demonize people that way, to make us scared of people, does a real disservice to the community.
Mayor Adler says instead of a Twitter feud, he'd like to speak to the governor face to face.
I want the state to be our partner, to be working with us.
Well, I'll tell you, not a lot of credibility left for the mayor here in Austin.
Yeah, well, vote him out. I really like the way he sticks to the memes.
Oh,
experiencing homelessness. You can't just cut it down to homeless.
No, you can't. You have to say, and you have to say neighbors experiencing homelessness. But the problem is, just like California cities, here now as well, there's no prosecution for small crime. There's no prosecution for small assault. There was a woman, and it could have been the same guy for all I know, a couple of weeks ago, was assaulted on the South First or South Congress Bridge. And, it's become violent because these are not just, you're right, he's right, homelessness or people experiencing homelessness, that's not necessarily the issue. But Austin has become a mecca for transients to come through because everything's free here. Free money, camp where you want, do what you want. Just because you can't camp downtown, every median of grass now outside of the downtown area is filled with tents, barbecues, people parking their cars on the median. Our mailbox was broken into yesterday. As you know, we don't have mailboxes. We have one up at the top of the street, but broken open, all the mail stolen, packages ripped open.
Which is a federal crime, I might add. So
thank you. That's not just some petty crime. Where's the Ring doorbell now? Where's all that? But you don't see the cops running around now saying, "Oh, do you have any Ring doorbell video? Any doorbell? Any video?" No, they don't even show up for it.
Well, we have the California versus Austin. We have a new issue, and the left-leaning media, at least, is on this one, and it's not quite the same as what you just described, but it's an issue because it's going to cost somebody. It could be anybody, a lot of money.
Yes. Yes, I heard about this one.
It's another money grab. And here's a report from one of the stations, I think, in Southern California on the new California water law.
All right, so many laws get considered each and every year. They're discussed and then they're passed.
All right, this one, I'm not sure how I feel about this. You're not going to be allowed to shower and do a load of laundry in the same day.
I had the same misgivings. Doing a load of laundry takes about 40 to 50 gallons of water. Taking a shower for about 8 minutes takes about 17 gallons of water. Well, there's a limitation on your daily use of water of 55 gallons per day. So that means if you are taking a shower and if doing a load of laundry, you can't do both without being in violation of the law. There are some exceptions about this. You can't do both without being in violation of the law. There are some exceptions about this. There are some caveats. For instance, if you have a multi-person household, if you have 4 people in your household or 3 people in your household, that 55-gallon limit per day applies for each person. So you could do a load of laundry if you have a multi-person household.
Okay. So who's going to police that? Yeah. Cuff Mark Kriske when he's laundry? What's going on? Who's enforcing this?
Well, you can actually see your water usage on a daily rate with your water meter. Now, there are actually fines available for this as well. Your violation is $1,000 per each day that you are in violation.
Wait, who made this a law? Let's talk to them.
It's the state legislature. The governor signed this into effect. It was in effect January 1st. Now, there's also another caveat. If we're in drought conditions and the governor declares an emergency, that fine can go up to $10,000 a day. So be careful.
You could change your word to serenity to anger now.
Wow.
You're not going to be able to shower in 2020.
You know what? I'm going to pick doing laundry over showering.
So all of a sudden, I can smoke marijuana as much as I want, but I can't take a shower.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
A whole new world. Yeah, absolutely.
That's where our country, our state is going.
Yeah, I saw this, and I clipped it as well. It's KTLA, the very famous Los Angeles station. It's what was most fascinating to me is the female anchor says, "Well, who made this law?" Excuse me. Hello, news lady. You're supposed to be on top of this. This was a state legislator, and it was signed into law. And they can completely track this right down to your microgallon. They know exactly how much you use. How many people live in there? 2 people. That's 110 gallons a day. Don't go over it. Oh, yeah. Fines are coming. Yeah. Well, luckily, you don't bathe that much, so you won't have much trouble with the law.
I never bathe. I just use...
I'm going to show my support by donating to No Agenda. Imagine all the people who could do that. Oh, yeah, that'd be fab. No agenda in the morning.
You know, you don't need to bathe if you use Dr. Bronner's.
Doesn't it require some water?
No, the stuff doesn't. It's unbelievable.
Oh, fabulous. I had no idea.
Just wipe it on and wipe it off. Use a squeegee.
Yeah.
Let's start off with thanking a few people for show 1205, starting with Mike Nikolaichuk. He says, he's, by the way, one of the guys that tracks the newsletter. And I got a lot of people that didn't get the newsletter.
Oh yeah, I got a second email from you. So we had another problem with the email reaching its intended destination. Well, this time I tried. It's a problem I've had here. I'll give you a little background on this.
I'm trying to figure out how many emails just aren't getting to the place at all, which I think is a problem with MailChimp.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been discussing this over various secondary mailings, and everyone writes in, "Oh, I got it. I don't care if you got it." So this time I came up with the bright idea, which was
email me if you didn't get it.
Well, I always say that. The problem was everyone emailed me anyway, whether they got it or not. But this time I added the stupid, easy thing I should have always done, which was use the subject line.
Yes.
I didn't get the email.
Yeah.
So that way I can sort out the people who just want to chat and people who actually didn't get the email, and it made it a lot easier. Now I could see it was like 20 or 30 people, which means it's just the tip of the iceberg because not everybody's even going to bother.
Right.
But so they're not getting the mail out or something. There's something amiss the way I see it. Because if you're not getting it at all, even in your spam box,
then
there's something wrong.
Well, you know what? Because I've been working with a lot of email in my with my workflows on Linux, I've noticed that in particularly Google Gmail is being very, very stringent with the DMARC. You familiar with DMARC?
No, I'm not.
DMRAC. Yeah, it's like a policy. What does DMARC stand for? Domain Message Authentication Reporting. That's DMARC, and they've tightened that up. I've only just started looking into it because I know that I don't have my DMARC set up properly on Curry.com. So if MailChimp doesn't have that set up properly, or if there's one small anomaly, immediate non-delivery, I don't even know if it sends a bounce message. So there's once again, it's mainly Google, but I'm sure the others are following suit.
Whatever Google does, everyone does.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's anyway. He is actually Sir Raul SK of the Paris of the Prairies. He's from Saskatoon, obviously.
Yes.
And let's give him a de-douching.
Okay.
You've been de-douched.
John Robinet, $100. Sir Gott Nate in Sebastopol, California, 6969. Baron Mark Tanner, twice a month, Whittier, California, 6789. Sir Tom Dari, 5510 from DeForest, Wisconsin. Francisco Tejeda, 5432. Stephen Sandoval, 5333. Michael Gates, 5280. Oh, there's another news item, Michael Gates. So Bill Gates makes a big stink. Yeah, I think we should have, Washington State is one of the few states like Texas, Florida, Nevada, there's a few, that have no personal income tax.
Yes, no state tax.
They have other mechanisms. In Washington State, they use speed traps and they catch dummies.
Here we use property tax.
Well, they use property tax too. But it seems to be better run than states when you start getting the state income tax. These states get corrupt, and California is the worst example.
Mm-hmm.
But so Bill Gates comes out with a big statement: Washington State. Now this is after this guy's already shut the lid on the submarine. He's in. Washington State should have, because he has no personal income anymore at all. He's got zero. All his money is just money in the bank that he spends. The state of Washington should have a income tax. This is ridiculous of a guy like this to say that. Just butt out. It got everybody all up in arms.
So our producer Michael Gates should call his family member and tell him to shut up. Is that the connection?
That's the reason I stopped. Okay. Michael Gates came with 5280. Eric Hochul in Mulrose, Deutschland. $52. Brian Burgess in Pelican Rapids, Minnesota. 5033 says it's an honor to help produce the show. It provides in-depth analysis. No one even attempts.
That's right.
Robert Stotts in San Diego, California, 2020. Matthew Grice, 5005, and he's got a happy New Year to us, and he's got a birthday for someone.
He has, first of all, this was 73 didgeridoo dues, which comes out to 5005. And, his daughter Freya on the birthday list. Yes, January 20th, she'll be 12, so we're a little bit early, but she's on the list. I think she's on the list for today.
And the following people are $50 donators, starting with Matthew Haynes, Matthew Januszewski in Chicago, Sir Matthew. Andres Domenici, I think.
Domenici.
Anyway,
Domenici is in Puerto Rico.
He's in Puerto Rico.
Send us a boots on the ground report, Andres. I'd like to know what else is going on there.
You can do it. Yeah. Paul Dubois in Kirk Honckson, New York. I don't know. Sir Brett Farrell in OKC. Baron Alan Bean in Oakland. Jeffrey Zinneman in South Euclid, Ohio. And last but not least, Sir Brian Watson in Raleigh, North Carolina. Short list today, very disappointing in that regard, but I want to thank all these folks for helping us and produce show 1205.
Yes, and everyone under $50, we see you. We see you there. In fact, I think a lot of those didn't even come through on the spreadsheet, John. I'm looking at, there's nothing under 10. We always have 5s and 4s. I don't see them on the list today. So I'm not so, this is part of the power outage, the tumbleweed terror that Eric the Shill is going through. So if we missed you, which is possible, then please just email us and we'll make sure we fix that. This is one that just blame it on the tumbleweed. We can't help it at all. But we do thank everybody who came in as a producer today. Thank the execs and the associate execs earlier. And again, under that $50, many people use that for reasons of anonymity, understood, but there's programs that you can join in. There's subscriptions that are just smaller amounts at certain dedicated times, so it can be once a month, once a week, once a show, whatever it is. Go to Dvorak.org/NA, select one if you haven't already, and know that we very much appreciate it. Appreciate your courage and for producing the best podcast in the universe.
Dvorak.org/NA.
I'm sure someone needs a karma.
You've got karma.
We did get a small list together, luckily, for this 5th day of January 2020. Scott of the Tall Corn will turn 39 years old tomorrow. As I said earlier, Matthew Grice says happy birthday in advance to his daughter Freya. She turns 12 on January 20th. And Brian says happy birthday to Eri Kyogi, who celebrated on January 1st. Happy birthday for everybody here at the best podcast in the universe.
Title changes, turn and face the slave. Title changes, don't wanna be a douchebag.
Says far as we know, we have one title change for today. Circumference has upped his support to the show in another $1,000 and has changed his title now to Baronet as he moves on up the peerage ladder. And you can always check the status of all of our peerage at itm.im/peerage. There should be a map in there somewhere as well, which I'm thinking I should put in the show notes more regularly. And thank you very much, Circumference, for your support of the show.
No agenda meetups.
It's just like a party, only it's a non-triggering event. Everybody is welcome at the No Agenda Meetups, where producers from around the world get together in all corners of the earth. Here's an overview of what's coming up in the near future. On Tuesday, the second biannual Knoxville meetup at 4 o'clock. Sir Seat Sitter will be waiting for you at Barley's Knoxville upstairs at the pool tables. Next Thursday, a No Agenda Tune Man tour. This is Jesse Coy Nelson, his Beirut stop, 6 o'clock European Standard Time. Meet Jesse at the Rabbit Hole on Makdisi Street in Beirut, Lebanon, one of the West Clark 7. Make sure you get there before they rubblize. Then next Saturday, we'll have the Long Island meetup, Long Island, New York, 7:30. Excelsior Slaves, come one, come all. It'll be at the St. James Restaurant and Bar. Andrew Grasso is your host for that. Let me see if we have... What's this?
Well, I got to keep reading because I have to read this note from Mimi.
I'm
about
reading
these meetups.
I'm reading the note from Mimi. So what are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about a separate note.
Well, why don't you do that then?
Well, I find the note, so keep reading. That's what I said keep reading for.
Now, this is interesting because I see here's a secondary Long Island meetup on the same Saturday. No, this can't be right. The St. James. No, it's this. I'm sorry. This is a doubling. So there is one Long Island meetup. There you go. That's the one at the St. James Restaurant and Bar. Then next Thursday, the 16th, so now we're already a Thursday, a week and a half away, will be once again the Austin Local 512 meetup. It'll be at Doc's Backyard in Sunset Valley. And that is, of course, Sir Scott Baronet of the No Agenda Armory, and his wife Christine will be organizing that. And if you did not hear something that is coming up near you, go to noagendameetups.com. You can find out more information about it. You can start your own. And a reminder, February 21st, Adam and the Keeper will be in Florida at the meetup, which is being scheduled for Delray Beach, and we look forward to...
and this is the problem. So what happened, and nobody seems to respond to Mimi on this, and she just got a mess on her hands, and she says no one can make a decision, and she's not going to do it because she's going to get blamed, and she says you're going to have to do it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 competing Delray meetups. There's the Saltwater Brewery at 6:30 by Scott.
This is great.
There's the Saltwater Brewery at 7:30 by Mez. There's the Saltwater Brewery at 6 by organizer Crystal and David Culpa. There's Brews Room Sports Grill at 6 by Lou Purrs. There's the Saltwater Brewery again at 6 by Nick B.
Sounds like the Saltwater Brewery is the place to be.
Yeah?
Yeah, so let's make it the Saltwater Brewery.
Which one? 6:30 to 7? 7:30? 6?
Can I ask you a question? Why are you so angry at me? What do I have to do with this?
I have to do this. I'm being firm with the organizers. Well, somebody has to make a decision about which one. You're gonna pick Saltwater Brewery, but which one? 6, 6:30, 7:30. By the way, somebody else has one that he wants to go to 4 in the morning with.
Okay, so it's going to be at the Saltwater Brewery, and it'll be around 6. And everybody who's organizing that, except for the one person who had a different one, I'll see you there.
The organizer, we're going to stick Crystal and David Culpa. Are going to be the organizers.
Okay.
Scott, Mez, and Nick B have to contact them, and then maybe you can switch ownership of this thing if you want to. But Adam has decided that it's the Saltwater Brewery, 6 p.m., organizer Crystal and David.
Yes. There you go. That wasn't so hard. I'm sorry there was so much angst in the Dvorak household about this.
We had meetings.
What? An actual meeting? No. This will not stand.
Yeah, that's why we had to go to the go-to guy, which is you.
Okay. Let me see. Do I have any of those?
And Lou, come up with something else.
I do see the note here. Finally. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, man. I love it when Mimi gets all upset.
And it's all for the 21st of
it's February 21st, and Saltwater Brewery. I like that everyone chose the Saltwater Brewery, except for Lou. Lou, don't go to Room Sports Grill. We'll see you at the Saltwater Brewery. It's going to be
the Saltwater Brewery must be a good place for a meetup.
Yeah, if everyone's thinking that way, it's going to be a great meetup. I think Horowitz might show up. And by the way, because he was very concerned about this, if Horowitz shows up, everybody pretend you don't know who he is. Who? What? You do a podcast with who? Do you do a show with John too? Never heard it. Just make sure you do that, because he's very concerned that people wouldn't know who he was.
Yeah, and you being the kind gentleman you are, decided to set him up.
Exactly.
I'd probably do the same.
What else are friends for? So that is a current overview. I did want to mention the 25th of January as an additional. That'll be in Moscow, Russia. So make sure you gear up. Man, I would love to go to one of those. We got to do more traveling this year. I've decided. Then I know you're laughing.
You say that every year.
Yeah, that's exactly what Tina says. I want to remind you, every year you tell me we need to travel more. We now have a map with pins in it. It was a Christmas gift. So I got a big map with pins where we're going.
Yeah.
I have a meetup report, a audio report. This is really the only kind that works best for a podcast, so I appreciate Sir Roderick Velo. We all know Sir Rod. He is Knight of the No Agenda Roundtable, also host of his own podcast in the Netherlands, which is very successful. He organized the Amsterdam meetup and recorded everybody in attendance.
This is Sir Rod on the No Agenda meetup Amsterdam. And this is
Sir Pate with the Protectorate of Friesland and North Holland.
I'm Tim Goudriaan from Roermond.
Hoi Adam. I'm getting lots of drinks, so that's really cool.
Hi, I'm Sir D of Hollandse Rading. This is my second meetup in 1 week in the Netherlands.
I'm Arno from Amstelveen.
Guus Kadaver.
Hi Adam and John. This is Jacob from Wisconsin, coming to you from Amsterdam.
I'm Jacobina. I'm Dame of the Doomsday Deniers. And we're not talking about impeachment.
Hallo, ik ben André Peters Esquire. And soon I will be Sir André, Knight of the Empty PayPal account.
Hello, John and Adam. This is Entrepreneurial from Amsterdam. Jeroen Jansen.
Hi, Maarten Tuiniga here. Just dropping in.
Sir Herco, Knight of the Papal Fiefdom of Utrecht. Second meetup in 1 week.
Not too much.
Never enough.
The bitterballs are excellent.
Now that's a meetup report. I live how they talk too.
I think that was one of the best meetup reports we've had.
I think it was
just introduce yourself,
dynamite.
get it out of the way.
Yep, dynamite. Well, it's also Rod. Roderick. He produced it, so he cut it up nicely, made it all work. I love the guy, the future Knight of the Empty PayPal account. I think that's a great Knight name.
That's a good name, yeah.
Thank you all very much. And remember, noagendameetups.com is where you can, hey, we need some more people to organize a meetup on the 21st. Let's see if we can find some other locations. It'll be fun. Or just find something near you and go attend. It's a great opportunity for a triggerless conversation about anything, good drinks, across boundaries, across age groups, race, creed, religion, background, age, you name it. We're a crazy cult. Go find your meetup.
I have a stink bug update.
Well,
we talked about the stink bug?
Yes.
And now nobody knew about anything going on, but apparently these stink bugs have invaded a good part of Washington state.
This is the marmorated stink bug, I believe, is the full.
Yes, exactly.
I got a lot of emails from people about your story. Apparently, yes, they're everywhere.
Brown marmorated stink bug is something Daryl Beetham of Paratex Pest Control has plenty of experience with.
They're a seasonal invader, and they come in right about now.
But now and again, and particularly now, homeowners call in with little clue about this critter, wondering what it is, where it came from, and whether it's harmful.
I do all the multi-care. There's like 6 hospitals and 40, outpatient centers.
Originally from Asia, the stink bug first crossed our border in 2010. Since 2012, it has spread quickly from Clark County to 20 others, working its way across Washington. They wait out the winter in cracks and crannies of heated homes, and then they get busy.
They propagate.
Over the past month, the emails and phone calls have flooded into WSU researchers, more than 300 so far. Most of those sightings in King, Pierce, and Thurston counties. So what do you do?
Once they're inside, don't squish them, because they will stink. Either vacuum them up, throw away the bag when you're through. Throw away the bag when you're through vacuuming, because your vacuum will reek for weeks.
The real threat is outside, where they're ready to gorge on trees and shrubs, and they don't discriminate, they decimate, which is why agriculture experts hope you will help them keep track. In Seattle, Greg Copeland, King 5 News.
So a question, how just looking at these pictures, how big is a marmot? We don't have them in Texas, I don't think. How big is one of these stink bugs? How big are they?
They're the size of a thumbtack.
Okay, so relatively small.
Maybe that's what I could tell. They're about the size of a thumbtack. Now, do you remember? Because I think we maybe went through 2 cycles of these bug stories, Bug-ageddons. It was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3. Bed bugs.
Yes.
There was story after story about bed bugs in hotels and bed bugs and bed bugs and bed bugs. And what happened? Did all the bed bugs die? How come that story just dropped off to just nothing? It wasn't scary enough. Apparently these stink bugs are now the story. So it's always some bug.
Now, can you eat them? Are they tasty?
Of course not. If they stink and they make a vacuum cleaner reek. Apparently it's a nauseating smell. That's why it's called a stink.
Yeah. I've definitely seen this type of bug. It looks familiar, but I don't think I've ever seen one here in Texas. You're right, and I'd like to know. I'd like to know a little bit more. What is this?
Maybe we should send you a few mating couples, and you can examine them for yourself.
No, maybe we won't do that. That's not a good idea at all. Updates. Epstein updates. The apparently FBI is now officially looking to talk to some people. Like, wow, they figured maybe it'd be a good idea to go have a chat with Ghislaine Maxwell and see if she had any involvement in any of this stuff.
Financier Jeffrey Epstein killed himself while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. But the case isn't closed. Reuters has learned the FBI is investigating people who may have been accomplices to Epstein's illegal behavior. 2 law enforcement sources told Reuters the principal focus is British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, seen here in 2013. Maxwell has not been accused of criminal wrongdoing. Her lawyers did not respond to a request for comment. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Giuffre, said in a civil lawsuit that Maxwell recruited her into Epstein's circle.
And so she introduced you to Jeffrey Epstein? She did, yeah. So you were hired to be a masseuse for him?
Initially, yeah. Maxwell has called Giuffre's allegations lies. Giuffre claims Epstein forced her to have sex with friends, including Britain's Prince Andrew. Andrew, 59, also categorically denies the accusations and has said he has no recollection of meeting Giuffre. Law enforcement sources said the FBI's focus is on people who facilitated Epstein and that Andrew does not fit that category.
Somehow I think they're just never really going to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, or as they say, socialite, British socialite. No, she's protected. She's protected. Yeah, she's protected. She's a spook. She's protected by multiple intelligence agencies and will never know anything. However, tonight, 60 Minutes is promising something new.
Sharon Alfonsi has investigated Epstein's death for 5 months and reveals what happened in the moments after his body was found. What did the prison guards do with Jeffrey Epstein's body?
So immediately after they discovered him, they took him to the hospital.
They were trying to do CPR on him. About an hour after he got to the hospital, they declared him officially dead, about 7:30, and then he was taken to the morgue where they did the autopsy the next day.
What do we know about what was found in Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell?
So it's interesting. You would think that it would be sparse, right? This is a federal prison, high security. What we have learned through our reporting is that there was multiple sheets in there, lots of bedding, an electrical cord, prescription medicine. There was actually notes and a paper. He had written a note.
So in the piece, you were heard saying that a guard was saying, "Breathe, Jeffrey, breathe." So this was widely known what was happening in the prison, or we aren't sure?
Well, we know the way that the prison was set up. He was in a secure area where there were about 8 cells. And so we have heard, and our sources tell us that the guards could be overheard saying, "Breathe, Epstein, breathe." And what's kind of eerie is that after that, the prisoners that were in that secure area all started chanting, "Breathe, Epstein, breathe."
So the other prisoners were aware of what was going on.
Well, they
apparently
knew something was going on. It's, the doors are blocked. They probably couldn't see that much, but certainly they heard the commotion.
Was there video surveillance in there in that area?
It's a great question. We know that there was video surveillance facing the guard's desk, which is outside of the area where he was. We are told that the video facing the cells, the video that might have seen his cell door, was corrupted.
It was corrupted, meaning?
We don't know.
Okay.
Good question.
No problem finding Ring doorbell video of anything in the fucking universe, but this one's corrupted in the jail. And he had electrical cords and she had everything. What? This is an abomination. It truly is an abomination. And it's insulting to people's intelligence.
Well, but then again, what's new? What's new with this story?
I didn't know they had all this. He had all that stuff in his cell.
Well, even so, but
that's kind of pertinent to how someone kills themselves. It's a lot.
They never said they saw the cord wrapped around his neck.
Now,
I always imagine somebody in there choking him, saying, "Breathe, breathe."
That I actually think is the best theory ever. The guy is standing there saying, "Breathe, Epstein," while he's choking him. That I think is something to look at.
You can imagine it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I don't expect much. Not expecting much.
I'm not even going to watch it. I'll watch a football game instead.
Well, you do that. I'll watch.
Now, I have an old clip that I wanted to get out of the way. Is this going to be our last clip?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then we can go back to 2016. I never heard this clip. We never played it on the show that I know of. This is before Trump was even elected. He had just been nominated president. And there was a discussion with Harry Reid.
Wait. So he said he hasn't been elected. He's been nominated president. What did you just say?
He's not been elected yet. This is before the election.
Oh, he has the nomination. Okay.
He was the nominee for the Republicans.
Got it.
So he's just a new nominee. So he's not any big thing, but there he is. And this is the kind of thing that was going on during that era when Trump just got nominated. Here's what the Democrats were doing.
It's obvious that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's obvious he can't control his mind or his tongue. And what I've suggested, if now because he's the nominee for the party, and he's entitled to briefings from the CIA, for example, I said publicly, give him fake briefings. Pretend you're briefing him. Don't tell him anything that you don't want to get out. And that's how I feel about it. I think that the man is a loose cannon. I think he's done so much to hurt our country with our international relations already.
But as a Republican nominee, isn't he entitled to get those briefings?
Give him fake briefings.
What does that even mean?
It means they'll tell him stuff. He won't know the difference.
You're basically telling the intelligence community to lie to him.
No, I'm not going to lie to you, but I just don't have to tell you everything.
I hadn't heard that clip. Is that one of ours?
No, I found it on the interwebs.
Well, I
was surprised when I heard. I had no idea this was gone that far back. He's already ruined the relations with the world. The guy just got nominated, and this is where they're headed with it. And this is where it began. I think this predates even stuff that was just prior to the election.
Well, just before the new year, Al Green, Representative Al Green of Texas, who has put his foot in his mouth multiple times when it comes to impeachment. He is, of course, the man who said, well, if we don't impeach him, he'll win. He'll be reelected. which is, I think, kind of the money quote for 2019. But just before the New Year's, he's on with Chris Hayes on MSNBC talking about the genesis of impeachment. And when the decision was really made that, this guy needs to be impeached.
And leveled against Democrats during this entire affair, particularly since September when the formal impeachment inquiry started. And you play a starring role in those charges. I mean, the argument goes like this of House Republicans and Trump and his allies, the president and his allies, is basically the Democrats wanted to impeach Donald Trump from day one. They cast about looking for a set of facts that they could plausibly use to do it. And all of it was pretextual and reverse engineered to get to this point. Exhibit 1, Congressman Al Green, who's been calling for the man's impeachment for 2 years now. What's your response to that charge?
Well, the genesis of impeachment, to be very candid with you, was when the president was running for office, and he had members of his own party to talk about his unfitness to hold office.
So when he was running, before he was even the nominee, we knew we had to impeach him.
Yeah, that pretty much says it all in this Harry Reid thing. I mean, these Democrats were not going to let this guy.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty astonishing, actually.
It's a great time to be alive, and even better time to be a podcaster. Would you agree?
I would say there's nothing else that you could do. If you want to get information out, you have to be a podcaster, because the media is not going to, or the mainstream is not going to pick up on it.
Nope.
They just won't run with it, because it's against some narrative, that unspoken narrative that I guess everybody internalizes, and then you end up with what you get, which is crap.
So if you're looking for non-crap, but a whole lot of stink bug, check in with us Thursday right here on No Agenda, noagendashow.com, or if you want to listen live, noagendastream.com. We will deconstruct anything that happens between now and the next show day. You never know. A lot seems to happen on show days. And please remember us for support at Dvorak.org/NA, coming to you from Opportunity Zone 33 here at the frontier of Austin, Texas, where people are being knifed to death. In the morning, everybody, I'm Adam Curry.
And from Northern Silicon Valley, where people are being pooped to death, I'm John C. Dvorak.
It's great to be podcasters. All right, everybody, we will see you on Thursday right here, No Agenda, Dvorak.org/NA. Please remember us. And until then, adios, mofo. Stay tuned for the grumpy old Bens. They'll be grousing about air travel and such.
Bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran. Because we can. Well, the shot is Saudi tanker and Rouhani is a wake up on Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran.
Good evening, everybody. The United States is once again attacking
Iraq sort of is like a big boulder sitting in the middle of the road there.
Yes, Bill?
We're hearing a series of very loud explosions now out of town.
The aftermath shows an attack that was deliberate and sustained. With around a half dozen explosions, the Americans firing with
T-land missiles offshore. You want us to declare war.
We took action last night to stop a war.
Prevent another Gulf War.
We did not.
Because we're acting today, it is less likely that we will face these dangers in the future.
He was plotting attacks against Americans, but now we've
to increase America's ability to prevent future acts of violence and aggression.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military executed a flawless strike that terminated the terrorist ringleader.
Earlier today, I ordered America's armed forces to strike military and security targets in Iraq.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know I sound like a broken record to many of you the last 6 years, speaking so much about Iraq. If you're a Sunday morning junkie, you've had to hear me almost every Sunday morning.
To demonstrate, once again, that reckless acts have consequences.
And I am ready and prepared to take whatever action is necessary.
Take him out? Well,
Well, how are we going to do that? Tell me how this ends, Charlie.
Let me close by addressing one other issue, that the serious debate currently before the House of Representatives would distract Americans or weaken our resolve to face them down.
Other Democrats are questioning the timing of the strike, which comes as the president faces a looming impeachment trial.
I'm the first person to ever get impeached, and there's no crime. I feel guilty.
While the Congress was voting to impeach the president, the U.S. military was bombing Baghdad.
This could escalate. It could lead to a cycle of violence. It just got more dangerous.
Well, no. I don't know about that. Now, are you going to be with me, Charlie?
I hear the zephyr coming. See if I can turn that into a song. The zephyr coming. It's 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 coming.
Dvorak.org/NA. Okay, Boomer.
No.
Agenda. In the morning?
It is the best podcast in the universe. The value. Value.
Model. Enabling.
Stunning.
News.
Analysis.
Without integrity.
Compromising. Advertisers.
For more than
11 years. Listen live on Thursday
and Sunday.
Turn down your goddamn radio! Please remember, when calling the Nick the Rat Show, turn down your goddamn radio. This message has been brought to you by the No Agenda Stream and producers like you.
And from America's Left Cloak, yeah, please go to, yeah, please been good, yeah, please go to, yeah, please been good.
Hello and welcome to episode number 43 of Grumpy Old Bens. I am Darren O'Neill coming to you live from a bunker deep in the heart of Middle America, just outside of Chirac, where it's 2020 and Sir Bemrose is going to a better place.
And from America's left coast, where it's not the destination, it's the journey that I'm going to complain about. I'm Ryan Bemrose.
Well, you complain about everything, but
I'm not planning on complaining about the destination.
Well, you're on the left coast already, and you want to go lefter.
I want to go far. Yes,
left
I'm going to go somewhere farther
left, except water.
Well, there's a small leftist state really far out in the ocean that I'm going to visit. See, a few years ago, my dad passed away, and then my mom moved to a better place. And if you're a longtime listener of Grumpy Old Bens, you know that I make that joke all the damn time. It's because she moved to Hawaii, and while I'm jealous, I still live on the continental U.S. The real benefit to it is that I get to go visit.
And in Kona, the home of the best coffee in the world, I hear.
I've heard that. I'm not so much of a coffee snob that I can necessarily tell the difference between an Ethiopian and Kona, but I do know that it's good.
Really? You can't tell? I mean, you're from the Seattle area. It should be like a fine wine. You should be able to take it. You should be able to take the bean. You should be able to smell it.
But I didn't want to come across as a total snob.
Why? Why would today be any different than any other show?
So, yes, I am flying out in a couple of hours to head to Hawaii for 2 weeks. The choice of destination is pretty easy when there's a place that that my mother lives over there that I can just, no hotel charge. However, being in Hawaii is not something that I'm here to complain about, because I'm going to enjoy myself thoroughly, and you guys are not listening to Grumpy Old Bens to hear about me enjoying myself. And frankly, I don't really feel like coming back and talking about being there at all. However, there is a process that involves getting there that kind of became the topic of today's show.
I thought it would be a great time to talk about air travel, because there's a lot involved with the tech sphere, with all of the getting tickets, pricing, the whole process of going through the TSA and whether that really makes you safer or not, paying for bags. And a lot of people are always looking. There are so many sites out there for people that think you can hack all of this stuff and find better deals. And I mean, really, the only person I've ever seen that did a great hack was the one that put like all of their clothes on to walk through the TSA checkpoint and then put it back in the bag. So that way it's like, well, no, your bag didn't weigh too much. It's fine.
Yeah.
But otherwise, traveling's a bitch.
Yeah.
And
there's so many things about it that are unpleasant. Not least being crammed into a seat for 6 hours that might be perfectly fine for a 75-pound, 4'1" person. But for somebody my size, and I can't even imagine somebody your size, which is a whole order of magnitude taller, how you even fit into something like that.
Well, let me ask you this, because this was one of the questions I had after this topic arose. And I know you and I are both
blitzed. No.
No 16 hours in a plane. No, I don't think anybody wants to try that.
No, I'm not going to try 16. I'm sorry.
You have to just stop in the middle of an ocean somewhere. That would be much better. But I know both you and I, and hello to everybody in the troll room, noagendastream.com. We do these shows live on Fridays at 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Bemrose time. So come along, troll along. It's a lot of fun. People hang out and tell us why we're wrong. And next week, there'll be a whole show about why Ryan is wrong, but I'm doubting it'll be on Friday. So watch.
I'm doubting it'll be much of a show, to be honest.
And the Mastodons for information on that. But both you and I are very much against government regulations in nearly every aspect of life. And airlines, I think, may be one of the exceptions for me. I think it may be time for somebody to step in.
Whoa. Hold on. Let me start with, I'm going to let you make your argument. I'm going to let you finish. Oh, go Kanye and you. But are you presuming that the airlines aren't one of the most heavily government regulated industries already?
They are to a certain extent, but obviously when it comes to how many seats they're fitting in these airplanes, that's one thing they haven't done. And I know people have suggested.
Oh, so what you're saying is that we have a total lack of competition based on government overreach, and you think that the solution is more government. Okay. I can follow this argument now. Go on.
But it comes down to this. If every airline can eke out every last inch and make everybody as uncomfortable as possible, and that's the way they can make more money, which seems to be the case. And I get it. The more bodies you can fit into an airplane, the more money you can make on that particular flight. I mean, there's a whole lot of economics involved with it, because you can go the other route and say, well, if we decrease the seating by 20%, we can raise the ticket prices. And that's a valid thing. There's no doubt about that.
Well, the economic argument is actually a lot more powerful, and far be it from me to argue that any problem is not necessarily caused by government. However, my statement earlier that there's no competition, ultimately, one of the biggest problems and one of the things that has led to airlines nickel and diming us forever is the websites that you bring up, where they will aggregate fares from 24 different airlines, and the one that is 3 cents cheaper is the one who's going to get all of the passengers.
Right.
And it has driven the airlines to compete how does Dvorak say it? It says in the Chinese, best price, where nothing else matters. Quality doesn't matter. Only price matters. And that is, in fact, a real problem that we're seeing in the airlines is best price. And everything else is falling by the wayside.
It is. And there are ways to get larger seats, but the cost of going business class or going first class is way, way, way above coach. And the way I look at it as being somebody
you mean the seats that I refer to as dignity class?
Yeah. And as somebody that's 6'6", that I haven't flown in a few years, and it gets to the point to where the normal seats, my knees are well up, pushing against the seat in front of me. If I don't get an exit row, the front row or one of these rows with a little bit more leg room, there's no question about it. My knees are in the seat in front of me. And that is actually a health issue when it comes down to being on a flight, longer than an hour or so with the, deep vein thrombosis and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, the way I would look at it is the airlines as an industry are really, really, really not serving the taller than average person in a way that is healthy. I mean, if you want to talk about, somebody being a, classist or racist, well, this is definitely a tallest when it comes to the airlines, because these planes are not built for anybody, like you said, over about 5'5".
Somebody alert the social justice crowd. There's rampant tallism going on.
There is. And this is like one of the only places that I can think of that you could discriminate against a class of people. Nobody is up in arms about this. And there are some very...
Check your skin color up for a moment, then go on with that statement.
But there's a lot. If you not watch the NBA, there are a lot of tall black dudes. Yeah. So, I don't think this has anything to do with height. Is not a skin color issue. I mean, of course, I'm taller than the average white guy, and I'm way taller than the average Irish guy.
You take and pick the tallest people you can find anywhere and point a camera at them. Sure, you're going to get an example of tall people, but the average dark-skinned person is not any taller than the average light-skinned person, not in any real way. I was just pointing out, you said that, height is one of the few ways that you can be legally discriminated against. And I only wanted to point out that also being white is one way that you can totally be discriminated against and are.
You're right. I always hate admitting that. But
I didn't mean to bring racism into this. I mean, it happens. I didn't mean to. I didn't have to.
Comes into everything. There would be an easy way for airlines to be able to handle this, and that would actually be to have some seats with more
provide
leg
actual
room
human life support
for people that are taller. I mean, it's just something that's there's always been the jokes going on that they're going to start charging people per pound, and they're going to put you on a scale before you get on an airplane. And we all remember, I think, because it only happened a few years ago.
If your ass is too wide to fit into a seat now, they'll charge you for another seat, and they don't even care. They're like, yep, dignity, fuck you.
But there are ways to deal with all of these things. And it would be a very simple thing.
Just to be clear, I'm not talking morbidly obese people. I'm talking about anybody whose hips are wider than my fucking keyboard.
It's getting down to what? It's like the seats some are down to like 17 inches.
Yeah, I think, I think that's...
So take a tape measure out, see 17 inches, ask who could really fit in this without.
Yeah, who was the last person who was able to fit into a 17-inch jeans without?
Well, maybe when you were like 8, that would be about right.
Well, for me, maybe 4. I'm big boned.
All they would have to do is provide a few extra seats on the plane for people that are taller. I mean, maybe you're not going to be able to sit with your wife, your husband, your family, whoever you're traveling with. But if there are a few seats that are on the plane that are available that go first come, first serve, the people that are taller, you could start to at least help with this issue. And the airlines just don't do that. They don't want to do it because, again, legally they can force you into whatever small seat they can.
So out here, for a very long time, I live in a county called Snohomish County, which is north of Seattle. But Seattle is in a county called King County, and the two counties have different regulations with regards to the allowable width of a parking space. I believe King County allows your parking space to be as narrow as 6'6", and Snohomish County requires your parking space be at least 7'4", I think, or some numbers about like that. The funny thing is, I don't drive like a giant pickup or anything. It's a sedan, but it's a full-size American sedan, so it's not small. When I am pulling into a parking space in King County, every single one of them is precisely 6'6" wide. And that means that I basically, if I go into a general parking lot anywhere in that county, my doors will be dinged because you have about 7 inches to open the door, crawl out of your car, and get back and forth because, and it's all over if a pickup truck parks next to you or something. And I always hated parking anywhere near where I worked or anywhere in that county for the precise reason that the regulations, they don't say parking spaces must be exactly 6'6". What they say is that parking spaces must be at least 6'6". You are allowed to make your parking space wider, but everybody who draws up a parking lot also has to worry about, we need to get as many parking spaces in as possible. And we have regulations that require us to have, so much landscaping and planting. Oh, and also in order to maximize our return on investment, we need to make the building as big as possible. So when they put down the land, it is pretty much a guarantee that the parking spaces are going to be at exactly the legal minimum. Why did I bring that up? Well, same argument about plane seats.
It is, except the parking lots aren't always full, and people do in parking lots park over those damn lines. I mean, that's the other funny part about it. When you said at 6'6", there are vehicles out there that are going to be too wide. So what do they do when you have one of these big old pickup trucks with the double wheels and back, and that just aren't going to fit in that space? Then can they not legally park in that parking lot, or what?
Well, in theory, if they're over the line, they can be towed. In practice, that doesn't usually happen. And in practice, half the time, what you really end up with is somebody will park with a wheel on both lines if they're wide enough. Then again, it's not the pickups that really screw with the parking laws. It's usually the BMWs. Those are the ones where somebody will just park diagonally right across the line so they take up 2 spots, because that way there's no chance of their car getting dinged or keyed accidentally. Because probably not going to be an accident.
Keyed, yeah, it's right. Keying is rarely accidental. You never know. But if you have your keys in your hand and it's a very tight spot, you could fall and things can happen, and it would be bad. But you're absolutely right. When you come down with these regulations that say you have a minimum of, this is where the airlines, this is where, the parking spots, same thing, except it's much easier to take up 2 spaces in a parking lot than it is to try to take up 2 spaces in a plane, because overall, the last few times
they shovel people on with a wheelbarrow.
Right. Well, the last few times that I've flown, it's like there haven't been many empty seats on the plane, and that leads to, of course, overcrowding, which of course leads to all of the issues that we're dealing with. And again, I hate government regulation, but I would like to see something that forced carriers that are going to operate out of the United States to force them to give you a little bit more room. And I understand the economics of it is why this causes the problem, because airlines just figure that, the few tall people, although I don't know, people are bigger. I mean, people are definitely getting wider. And I think people are also getting taller, is at least if my nephews are anything, to go by. It's like people seem to be getting taller as well.
That's a side effect. That's a side effect of the fact that humans are, for the most part, healthier than they have ever been in human history. And we're not subjecting our kids to all of the things that stunt their growth, like, massive infections or childhood diseases that we used to have. And so and then we're also, using artificial hormones in our food to stave off or extend your puberty. So yeah, people are definitely getting taller.
Ned's suggestion for me in the troll room is to get shorter. I mean, eventually that happens to everybody. You'll lose it, but not legs. I don't think they really shrink.
I've got a hacksaw that'll do the job.
You could just take a few inches off. It'll be great. It'll give you a lot more room.
Have you heard the stories about people in China who have the opposite problem and will actually get a surgery where a surgeon will go in and break their legs at the shin and insert, like if you have a really bad leg break, then sometimes they need to put a titanium rod or something inside your leg just to hold everything in place because your leg isn't doing it anymore. Well, They'll do that, but they'll put in a titanium rod with an extender with the effect that it will give you like an extra 1.5 inches or 2 inches of height when it heals.
Nice. We can do anything with medical science. So why can't we make airline seats more roomy? Why can't we it just comes down to what they're allowed to do. And really the question for me, I guess, is how come the airlines have never been sued by a bunch of tall people? Because is it just the fact that it's not a right to be able to fly? So if you don't come into these parameters they like, but I haven't seen anything. At least nobody's been successful because it seems things have gotten worse over the last decade or so with airlines.
Of course they have.
I mean, it's funny when you look at pictures of early air travel, how the aisle in the middle is so wide and they're just people you can walk like. When's the last time you've been on an airplane that if somebody's coming one way down the aisle and somebody's coming the other way, that they could actually pass each other without sitting in somebody's lap? It doesn't happen.
I don't know if I've ever. Probably not since the time when I was a small child who could pass anybody or crawl underneath the seats. And also people were smoking on the planes.
Which helps stunt your growth, which was great for the airline industry.
Yes. Actually, you know what? I should thank my parents for smoking in the house when I was a child, because it's probably the main reason why I'm not 6'6".
Yeah, could probably saved you a few inches. So, thank them. Go ahead. Thank mom when you see her.
Yes, I will let her know. Be like, hey, mom, thanks for smoking at me all my life.
Now she lives in the land of wonder with the fresh air and the ocean breeze.
Yeah, fresh air is relative. It depends on what the volcano is doing.
Well, yeah. That's
what I mean
is downsides.
What I mean is, the volcano is actually erupting and shitting lava out into the world only, once a decade or so. But the gaseous vents are open all the time, and the prevailing winds kind of blow from. Like the prevailing winds in that area blow in such a direction that it goes from the volcano across the island and then out toward the other islands, although it's usually not a big deal once you get as far as the other islands. But yeah, so if the volcano is venting noxious gases, then you have what she call, I guess the people in Hawaii will call a VOG, which is a volcanic fog. And it's like a really hazy day that you would get over any big city that has a lot of pollution. But the haze is mostly fun stuff like sulfuric acid and brimstone and the kind of things that you probably don't want in your lungs, but you're getting them anyway.
And that would seem to be worse for the climate change than the actual airplanes that we're talking about. So how come people just can't stop those volcanoes? They are really bad.
I'm sure that somebody is planning on drawing up government regulations to prevent volcanoes from doing that. And yes, if you're looking at the kind of chemicals that do things like fuck up ecosystems, look no farther than what comes out of any given volcano. You're gonna get all sorts of fun stuff. Not to mention that sulfur is not the best smelling chemical.
So is it that's just the planet trying to commit suicide, I guess, because we have to do everything to save the planet, and the planet is putting out, or the planet's just trying to kill us, is what it is.
No, what actually is when the planet was formed, all of the chemicals kind of got together in a big stew, but some of them life doesn't like. So for the most part, there are plants that will consume up and suck the sulfuric acid and some of the terrible things out of the atmosphere, and also carbon. In case you're looking for, what's the worst pollution ever? It's one that is in every human body. But things like carbon and a lot of other terrible chemicals tend to get absorbed out of the atmosphere, usually by plants. And then over a really long period of time, plate tectonics at the edge, everywhere that a plate is going underneath another plate, everything that everything that fell into the ocean fell on the ocean floor, sits there on the ocean floor until it ultimately gets subsumed underneath and pulled down into the earth. And that's where, something like, 99.9999999, the vast majority of all the carbon on Earth is in the mantle and crust of the Earth. It's underground. So after the Earth is finished eating all of these fun chemicals at the tectonic plate subduction boundaries, well, what do you do after you eat a huge meal? You have to fart. That's what Hawaii is.
Is that on their tourism posters and stuff?
It should be.
Because that's a great that's a great new slogan for them.
The Hawaii hotspot is basically a tectonic anus. There's a couple of places around the world that are like that, where you're not at a plate boundary or anything, but you just got, there's shit bubbling out from the ground. And one of them is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it has created an entire chain of islands, which is actually fascinating in itself, and is one of those things that's taken as proof that the plates are moving around. Because if you look, Hawaiian islands are all kind of in a row, and there's another 300 underwater mountains that, if you keep following that and look at, it just goes on all the way across to Siberia, to northeast Russia. And if you follow that, then what you realize is the thing that is generating volcanoes is kind of sitting still on the earth underneath, but the Pacific plate is moving across the top of it. So every few million years, the location where it's bubbling up kind of ends up in a different place on the plate, and you form a new island.
And then you fly there to spend your leisure time.
That's what I do.
So do you have, in the Bemrose world, if you could do anything, how would you fix the problem of these small airline seats for the tall people? What would you do?
Well, so a few years ago, I needed to go visit some friends. They were in Salt Lake City for a wedding. Salt Lake City is, 800 miles from here. And it was going to be just a weekend trip. And they even offered, they're like, hey, I could try to find you a plane ticket or something. And I kind of looked at this and I'm like, no, fuck flying. I hate flying so much. So we got in the car and we drove 14 hours each way to get.
Did you have a stroke?
No. I may have a wife issue, but we'll find out.
Just one? One?
No. She came in with a scowl on her face like she needed something. Anyways, so yeah, I guess to answer your question, I am the kind of person who will drive 14 hours so that I can avoid getting on a plane. So how do I do this with Hawaii? Well, obviously, if government intervention is really the solution, they need to build a fucking bridge. I'll take the bridge.
They need a big bridge.
Sure.
And
you can run Tesla supercharging stations all along it. It'll be great.
I mean, a tunnel would probably be better, or something like floating. No, that wouldn't work. That would get ships and stuff. Underwater, I guess you would have to do it. But with the airline industry, I really do think somebody needs to step in and make those minimum seat sizes large enough to actually accommodate the size adults that we have in today's society. Because without that, they're going to keep throwing them in. Like you said, the problem partially is everything's going on price now, and everybody wants the best price, of course, which makes sense. And if you're short, I mean, that's great. You can go sit anywhere you want. When you look at the alternatives, and I mean, I really hate, being this height when it comes to air travel, because people will be like, well, you could always just go first class. And the difference in the airfares is absolutely nuts. I mean, it's usually like 5 times, if not more, than the coach price. So it's like, okay, say if I want to fly to Vegas, it's like, okay, I maybe can do Vegas for about $400 round trip from Chicago sitting in coach, but it's going to be closer to like $2,000 for first class.
I mean, the average 737, which is the plane I'm going to be on, has 60 seats or so for cargo class and 6 for first class. So that's kind of a supply and demand thing. If you have more than 6 people who want to be able to fly with their dignity intact, then you're going to end up driving the prices up. In my opinion, it would make more sense to start putting more larger seats in there. However, the very idea of first class, they have all the amenities because they want, to make it attractive. They have free drinks. They have the free movies. They have the constant service, the custom bathroom. I don't want any of that. I just want a bigger seat. Yeah. If you could get a seat that was sized for a human being, then I would even be willing to be nickeled and dimed on a can of fucking Coke.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. If the seats were actually, if you had enough legroom that you weren't going to, you have to kick the seat in front of you with your knees the whole time. Yeah, I don't care. I don't need peanuts. I don't need free drinks. I don't need anything else. I'm willing to pay for that. I'm just not willing to pay 5 times more to sit in first class or business class just because I can't fit in the coach seats. There needs to be a middle ground. And this may be, again, a place where the government could actually step in and say, okay, you have to have at least this many seats on each flight that have extra legroom that go by, the people get that are tall enough. If you want to go against the fatzos and who too fat to fly, Kevin Smith, remember that whole deal. And if you want to talk about stuff like, well, we should weigh people because we're really, air travel is based upon your poundage, whether you're carrying cargo or people who are cargo. It goes by weight when it comes to the cost for the airline. So it comes down to me. I mean, I hate it when you walk into a plane and they have either the exit rows or the first, the rows where you have a little extra legroom between if there is a first class. Usually that first row behind first class has a, little divider in front of it, but most of the time there's more legroom.
That divider is called the class structure.
And how many times have you walked onto a plane and seen like some little 5'2" girl sitting on one of those seats, like, woo, kicking her legs like she's got all the room in the world. And then they take the tall people and shove them in a seat that they don't fit in.
Because first class is not about the size of the seats.
Class. I'm just talking about coach seats with more legroom.
Oh.
So whether it's that, first seat in coach, whether it's the exit rows.
I don't think they should be putting a 5-year-old girl in the exit row because one of the main reasons. Okay. Well, then
I say 5 years old.
A big girl.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't know that they should be putting that in an exit row anyway, simply because the expectation of the exit row is you need to be able to help people get off the plane. And I'm not sure that anybody who's 5'2" is going to be able to wrangle my ass through there. Really, the only thing you could do at that point is get out of the way and let the big people deal with things.
I would like to know. I mean, this is kind of a morbid curiosity because there's very few, except when Sully landed down, in the Hudson in New York, there's very few examples of a plane which has an emergency landing that you have to use the exits. And I really wonder for those times, how many people in the exit row really assisted and how many, I'm guessing, just opened the door and got the hell out of Dodge.
But, well, it turns out I haven't been there.
Well, that's good.
I will say that the chance of a water landing goes up immensely when you're flying across the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. That was the first thing I thought of when going to
when
Dublin.
They're like, in the event of a water landing, and I'm like, we're flying across the mountains.
You're like, I'd be much more worried about hitting a mountain than landing in a lake somewhere. But
please, if we have to make an emergency landing, I'd rather go land in the water. Don't fly into a mountain. People don't survive that very often.
Yeah, mountain or lake. Go. I always go lake. And it's I mean, the nice thing is when it comes to air travel, I didn't read the article because I didn't even know we were doing this when I saw this a few days ago. Right. But it was a few days ago before we decided on the topic. But it did say that like over the last decade or so that the airline safety has gotten way better. It had improved. The amount of deaths involved with airline travel was down. And it is a very safe medium when it comes down to it.
And that, by the way, is part of, well, this is the kind of statement that gets me vilified as a total asshole, but I think we're already here. The extreme safety of airlines is in fact directly related to the cost argument that we were talking about earlier. In particular, as with any situation where the first 80% is pretty cheap and then the next 10% is a little more expensive, and then the next, and every time that you want to get another small fraction, then the price goes up immensely. And if we were willing to accept the level of safety in planes that we all take for granted from cars, then the cost of flying would be 20% of what it is now. And the airlines actually don't have a choice in that. In that case, the cost of flying would be capital costs plus operating costs plus fuel, and fuel would be the main one. But the FAA requires such an insane safety record that the number of things that have to be done in order to guarantee it are out of control.
Which keeps the planes actually in the air rather than crashing in the mountains.
And as a person who occasionally gets on a plane, I'm not going to lament the fact that they're very, very safe. But I mean, the statistic is out there that you are far more likely to die on your way to or from the airport than you are while you're in the air. And that's not a surprise.
Yeah, you never die in the air. I mean, it's usually at the end of a very long descent and quick descent.
Some people die in the air.
Well, that's true. That is true. Medical emergencies do happen while in the air.
Yes. Or people who will, pull out their guns on the plane because we haven't banned all guns ever. Oh, wait, we have.
Well, box cutters, those are the things too. Anything can be hidden now. You just get through the TSA checkpoints with a lot of things. And that's the funny part about the TSA.
Do you even want to start on security theater?
No, before we go to security, let's go to step one. Okay. When it comes down to you've decided you're going somewhere, in your case, Hawaii, the dance that is airline ticket costs is something that, I mean, for people who don't travel often or don't travel a lot, the maddening thing when it comes to airline ticket prices is there's almost a zero chance that the random guy sitting in front of you, behind you, next to you on the plane actually paid the same exact fare that you did, because these fares change on really a moment-to-moment basis, depending on the airline.
Yeah,
and
airlines pioneered the stock market technique of microtransactions.
Right, which comes down usually it's like there's when a flight first goes on sale, and some of these airlines, I think Southwest is one where you can buy a ticket if it's still the last time I looked, it's like 6 months or something in advance. So the day something goes on sale, you'll probably get some really good fares. And then as the plane starts to fill up, all the prices go up because they know people that really have to go somewhere. I'll pay that higher prices. And then quite often as you get closer to the day, the fares come back down. And it really does. They swing wildly up and down. And it is one of the worst parts about if you're worried about budget anyway.
And then we come right up to the part where you realize that they had 61 seats on the plane and they sold 65 tickets to people.
Well, yeah, because somebody's going to die on their way to the airport, as you pointed out. So we don't want to miss out on those seats.
Except when people don't, and then they're like, "Yeah, we know that you had a reservation and you paid us money and you're a paying customer, but fuck you, we're not going to provide the service that you just paid money for."
You actually wanted the seat that the ticket said you. Oh, Wow, that's confusing. And then they will give you free stuff.
I mean, if you're talking about shit that needs to be regulated, maybe the fact that they somehow have the ability to collect your money in exchange for a service and then not provide that service because they collected too many people's money.
Well, and that, planes will, flight will get canceled. They've got to move people around. But the overall just pricing, how do you deal with that? When you decide to go somewhere, I mean, because some people just go look at the price, buy the ticket, and never want to worry about it, because even though you might save some money, and sometimes a decent amount of money, it really makes you want to put a gun to your head watching these fares go up and down. Because like Bitcoin, I mean, you could sit there and go, oh, gee, the flights to Hawaii what are they? From Seattle to Hawaii right now. Do you know what you paid going down there?
No idea.
So I figured
I have somebody who is way more fastidious about watching prices and things than I am, who deals with that sort of thing.
Let's just say, because I remember like when we went to Ireland like 10 years ago, I mean, I think the tickets were, like $700 or something round trip from Chicago into Dublin. Now, if you first look at the tickets and go, oh, gee, they're $850 and, maybe I think I can get a better deal. And you start watching this. I mean, it can go either way, like Bitcoin. I mean, that $850 fare, maybe you get lucky and it drops to $700 one day and you can snatch it up. But that $850 fare can also go up to $1,000. And then, you've kind of screwed yourself if you need to travel at any particular time. It's way easier. Most of these travel sites have made it easy if you are very flexible when you can go to save the most money on airfare. But if you're going on specific dates, like you said, you went somewhere for a wedding, but that's where driving was better.
Yeah.
What's your theory? Would you just buy the first?
My theory is that if it's the question of whether or not to deal with that combined with all of the other bullshit that I've been talking about, my theory is that I'm perfectly happy to get in the car and go on a method of transportation that is both a lot more comfortable and that I have some control over.
We have a lot of control over it. That's the one thing you have the most control over. The one thing I've thought about doing, which I never have
I'd
yet.
love to take a train or something if I thought that the process was any better. And I know
think
the seats
it is.
are bigger.
The seats are way bigger, and then you can get like the sleeper cars and all that. Although I think those
and Obama promised we'd never have to take our shoes off.
Well, there is no equivalent in the train industry, as far as I know, to the TSA, which is an intriguing thing to me.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that hasn't happened yet, but I have confidence it will.
It's been a while.
The main reason it doesn't is because train travel is not, outside of a few very select corridors, train travel is not really viable in the United States as a means of getting from place to place, not like airplanes are. And especially out west where I am, there just aren't enough railroad tracks and everything is far enough apart that doing a point-to-point system like airplanes is significantly easier from a perspective of setting up a company to do it. There's basically one double track that goes up the Pacific coast from Vancouver, BC, all the way down to San Diego. And that track is shared by freight trains, by coal trains, by the occasional passenger train. There's just not enough capacity. So, combine that with the fact that it is thousands of miles. I mean, we're not quite Australia because there's at least something in between those cities, but it's really, really far. And so, yeah, if you're outside of a metro corridor.
Well, it depends on how far you're traveling. As John C. Dvorak of the No Agenda Show said, there was a point where he was traveling, I think, from New York down to maybe like Atlanta or something like that. And the question was, you could take a train or you could take a plane in the morning, to hop from New York to Atlanta. And that would, maybe it was like an hour and a half flight. Or you could hop a train the night before and it's going to take you 8 hours. But when it all came down to it, it was actually more convenient. Just hop on the train, go to sleep, wake up, you're where you need to be.
And I would absolutely rather spend 8 hours and be able to feel my legs at the other end.
Right. Because again, small damn seats. But for me, looking at going someplace like Chicago to San Francisco or just the Bay Area. I mean, I don't want the poop on the street and all that. But the airline, it takes about 5.5 hours from Chicago to San Francisco, Oakland, and back. A train, on the other hand, the Zephyr, which goes from Chicago into the Bay Area, is a 53-hour train ride. So you're going from about 5 or 6 hours to 53. So it's not exactly convenient. But now if I was going someplace, like down to St. Louis here, if I didn't want to drive from Chicago to St. Louis, the train isn't bad. It's like 4 hours. And again, you can walk around and you don't have to worry about anything. Distance matters.
Well, at the risk of sounding grumpy and old, it might be
of the show.
It might be a commentary on our society that we prioritize. I want to get to a place that is half of a continent away, and I can't wait 2 days. I have to do it right now. That is kind of a commentary on our society. If I really needed to be in Chicago for any particular, for most of human history, that was the kind of trip that would take months, and you had a relatively low chance of making it at all. And if you can do that trip in 2 days, that is amazing. That is an incredible feat of engineering, and yet it's not good enough.
Well, yeah, time is money. Which you could tell that the
that's
trains
why we're paying so much for airplanes.
Well, again, that is absolutely true, and that's why they fit as many people. Well, that's not really why they fit as many people in. That's all economics. They could add more planes that have more legroom and go that route, but of course they wouldn't make as much money. And I get it. As a company, you want to make money. I understand that concept.
Yeah, those bastard capitalists. How dare they? How dare you?
But the train, it definitely seems like it would be a much more comfortable trip. But when there is that alternative, it's not that, if there was no such thing as air travel, and we might get there. Greta Thunberg wants to shut down these horrible, horrible airlines, and she may end up getting her way at some point where they will limit air travel to the point that the 53 hours to the Bay Area from Chicago is going to seem like a great deal again. So I don't doubt that may get here.
There is a threshold, though. You definitely don't use like if you want to get from where you are to say North Chicago. I assume there's something north of Chicago. I don't know what. You probably don't get on a plane. No. There's a threshold where ground transportation is absolutely better for intra-city, for in a metro area. Like if you need to get from, say, New York to Philadelphia, I suppose there are some people who would take their private jets, but most people will just get on either in a car or on a train because that's not far enough to really matter. And getting from here to Seattle, there is a train that is a daily commuter train that you can get on, and it's actually an amazing experience because it also travels right on the edge of the ocean with the mountains across the way. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's a fun experience, and I've taken it to commute. Not often because Seattle is not where I worked, but I really like that. And for a short travel, I ground transportation really wins. So there is a threshold for at what point, okay, so traveling half of a continent, it makes more sense to fly just in terms of time, in terms of energy. But traveling across the city, you want to drive or take a public transportation if that's an option for you. So what is the threshold? Actually, let me just say it like this. How far would you have to go, Darren, before you decide, you know what, air travel really is the way to go, and I don't want to take a ground transport?
Well, what's north of Chicago? As far as big cities
Canada?
go, is Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Wisconsin, the state, comes before Canada.
Oh,
we're not right up on the north end
I'm
here.
I'm so sorry for that.
Milwaukee is about 2.5 hours from here. The drive is definitely not bad. There are trains that go there. With that said, I'm sure that there are flights that go from Chicago Midway into Milwaukee. I would be very surprised if not. Again, they probably use this as also the way for people to jump from Milwaukee to other larger southern cities. You end up flying from Milwaukee to Chicago and then kind of use that as a hub. But I've driven down to Nashville before, which is about a 7 to 8 hour car ride. And I've also flown to Nashville, actually to and from Nashville in the same day. It depends on what your schedule is. So,
right. And your threshold for intense physical pain.
Right. Well, when I flew to and from Nashville in the same day, somebody else was paying for the tickets, and it was business class in, at least the business or Southwest. So you got to board first, got the first row, leg room, and you didn't have to bring any luggage because it was just going down for a meeting and then coming back. That was probably the best flying experience I ever had because you just showed up, didn't have to worry about checking any bags, got on the plane, then came home the same way. Dealing with luggage is another big pain in the ass. But as far as the threshold for me, I don't see flying anywhere that I could drive. I mean, we've driven to Minneapolis a few times, and that is about an 8 hour or so. And we've driven to Florida before with my parents years ago, where that is, obviously a much longer drive. But I definitely prefer when you're going down to Florida, I definitely prefer flying. But, that's about it. I don't think I could ever drive to California. I mean, I think that's a little too far, going through the mountains. It's an easier drive. It's a pain, right?
Actually, it's some beautiful country between here and California, but it is a long freaking way.
Yes. And then sometimes you just want to kick back and relax. And, I get it. You can't do that flying anymore, though. That is the problem. Maybe trains, there's a chance.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to take drugs to knock me out because it'll be the only way that I don't end up just ranting at everybody in my aisle.
Yes. If you watch, we're grumpy old Ben, so this comes back from our day. Did you watch as a kid the A-Team, the television show?
Not familiar.
Oh, man. Mr. T played B.A. Baracus. He was like the big bad dude, of course.
Yes.
A-Team.
Yes, that was absolutely. I'm like the 18. Wait, 18 what?
Oh, the 18. You're always just waiting for the girls to become 18.
Yes.
But that's now. That wasn't back when you were a kid. B.A. Baracus hated to fly, so they always drugged him, and then he just woke up somewhere else. I always thought that would be a great service for somebody to provide for people that hated to fly, which is, little ninjas come into your room, drug you, and then you wake up in Hawaii and you go, oh.
I mean, my drug of choice in this case is Benadryl, which means that I'll arrive at the other end with no allergies and yawning.
And really seeing pretty colors, I tell you.
Yeah.
But that would be a great concept. That you can actually make flying better that way if you were just drugged and don't even remember the flight whatsoever.
So I think I already established from an anecdote earlier in this show that my threshold for how far is at least from here to Salt Lake City, which I think is farther than most people would want to go. But what made me bring up the threshold idea at all is there were for a couple decades, there were commuter flights that would go from SeaTac to Portland Airport. And Portland is 250 miles away. It's 4, maybe 5 hours by car, depending on where you start.
Probably a half hour by plane?
Yeah, half hour in the air. And most of I think there might still be 1 or 2 a day for the people who are really hardcore commuters. But for the most part, the airlines have stopped running a lot of the Seattle to Portland. There used to be like a Seattle to Portland every 20 minutes or something. I mean, it was just that complicated, that common. But for the most part, the number of flights have slowed way down. And one of the big reasons for that is that once you count the amount of time taken to put up with all of the airport bullshit on either end, you're not saving any time versus just driving.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever island hop down in Hawaii? Because this is something I'm totally unfamiliar with. I'm assuming there's a bunch of small
I have
airports.
Not, but yes, this is something my mom is very familiar with. She'll tell me something like, she lives on the Big Island, the volcanic one, but she'll say something like, "Oh yeah, we went to Honolulu for the day." Okay,
and I'm guessing there's very little TSA to deal with for those flights.
My understanding is that you flash a Hawaiian driver's license and they're like, come right in. Also,
Aloha.
the Kona airport is 3 buildings and a large tarmac, and that's pretty much it. It's nothing compared to SeaTac, which SeaTac is only a medium-sized airport, but it's large enough that you need to sprint to get across it if your connecting flight is less than a half hour out.
Well, that makes it more fun.
Yeah.
It makes traveling an adventure.
SeaTac is also a 90-minute drive from here, which is one of those things that adds to the, when you say the flight time is only 6 hours to Hawaii, this is going to be a 12-hour ordeal just to get from here to there. And there's a lot of that is, security theater on the ground. The fact that in order to get there, I have to travel from here through downtown Seattle on a Friday afternoon to get to the other side of the city.
So are you drugged up before you get to the TSA, or do you drug yourself up after that?
I'm drugged up now.
That's good. I mean, I think if I would know your wife enough that she would want you docile going through TSA, or you know what? I don't know if she cares, because either way, she's not sticking around and bailing you out if you get in any trouble. She's just like, in Hawaii.
I suspect it'll be a lot like the last time when, I ended up with bruises on my elbow, where every time that she looked at me and I was about to say something snarky and cutting, then she would squeeze my arm.
Why don't you guys get a real job instead of hassling me?
Yeah. That's, your salary is paid by my taxes. That's always a good one. That's really effective. When has that line ever mattered to any bureaucrat?
Never. But that is probably the part. Besides the fact, okay, let's rate these things. The number one thing, at least that I hate, and I think most people would be the uncomfortable seats of the airplane as the number one most hated thing, or is it going through the TSA checkpoints?
For me, it's the security theater, because I at least understand the economics behind cramming everybody into a 1 cubic foot space. There are no economics behind the TSA security theater. It is all propaganda, fear mongering, and government control, and nothing else. They have not demonstrably prevented. They have not come up with evidence of having prevented a single terrorist anything. They have literally, in 20 years almost of existing, they have accomplished nothing except to make airline travel less convenient, more expensive, raise taxes, to employ a crapload of government bureaucrats. And, oh, by the way, that's not exactly a dream job for the people working for the government. They fucking hate their jobs because it's a terrible job, but it's paying people with tax money.
Well, it's really important that you can't bring a bottle of water with you through the checkpoint. That's some very dangerous stuff. They've collected a lot of probably nail clippers, small knives.
Yeah. And they that they haven't actually prevented anything, because you guarantee if they ever did anything that was actually effective, it would be on the news for the next 12 months straight, as specials and coverage. They would tell us, they would make sure, because how do we know? Because one fucking retard pulled a lighter out on a plane and tried to set his own shoe on fire, and now we have to walk through these stupid things barefoot.
Well, you never know what's in your shoe.
I know what's in my shoe, and it's probably best that it stay there. And I also know what's in the shoes of everybody around me, and I'd really like it to stay there, because my respiratory system works, and I don't like standing in a line with all these assholes that are barefoot and never fucking wash.
The interesting thing with the TSA is the technology that's being used. If we can all just be honest about it, is still fairly simplistic, meaning your bags go through an x-ray and you walk through a machine, depending on which airport you're going through. There's a few different ones of the, either a very simple metal detector, or they've got those new ones now where they have a puff of air that they can allegedly tell if you have any kind of bomb making residue, bad things on your person that the thing can pick up. But the machines are still relatively in their infancy, and the biggest thing that everybody talks about them keeping off the plane would be guns and knives. Well, you can make a really...
And laptops.
Well, yeah, because laptops are obviously bad. I'm really surprised. I mean, when it comes down to the fact, over the last 10 years, what has been a bigger threat to your airline safety while you're up in the air?
Oh, that's easy. That's the government.
No. Lithium-ion batteries have been much more worrisome than terrorists. And that's not an exaggeration in any way, shape, or form. And every asshole has those now in their laptop and in their phone. And which Samsung was that? The 7 or something that had those problems where it was exploding. And
yes.
Apple's had that problem. And I'm sure every laptop manufacturer's had a battery run like that. So it's interesting that the biggest thing they're worried about.
One of my favorite game mods ever, where they created a custom grenade in this fighting game that you pulled out a Samsung phone and you hit the unlock and then you threw the phone and it blew up like a grenade.
That is awesome. Sadly, it's more realistic than we would probably care to believe, but we have some nice ceramic knives in the kitchen. The ceramic will not show up in a metal detector. So how are you keeping metal knives off the plane? How is that helpful when any asshole can sneak a ceramic knife onto the plane? I don't see this.
Obviously, if you can afford a ceramic knife, you're rich, and rich people have different rules, right?
I guess.
Isn't that?
And there are 3D printable guns. I mean, you could also make guns out of material that aren't metal. I mean, really all you need to do when you have a gun on an airplane, because once you're in a pressurized environment, it's probably a really bad idea to fire the gun in an airplane. But all you have to do is have it look like a gun, and that's going to probably get you what you want. Because
I mean, you try to take if you manage to get a squirt gun on the plane and anybody sees it, they're going to they might be halfway there, but they're going to turn the plane around to take you back and screw everybody out of their trip.
But this just shows, like, okay, what is the TSA really, really, really preventing?
Nothing
from getting on the planes. And yeah, I think you're right. With nothing, it is
no. There have been countless tests where quote unquote tests most of the time, because the TSA will never sanction an official test, and of course, but you know what penetration testing is, right?
Hell yeah. It's Jay Finley.
Yeah. It's where somebody tests security by trying to get through it. And there have been lots of people who actually set out with the intent of penetration testing. And the funny thing is, if the TSA ever detected somebody was trying to test their system, they would arrest that person and claim we were sure he was a terrorist, which isn't actually the real reason, because somebody trying to show that the TSA is nothing more than ridiculous theater is far more dangerous to the bureaucracy that they've built than a terrorist ever could be. They could let 20 terrorists through and blow up planes and take out an entire airport, and they probably could recover from that. But if there were sufficient actual proof that what they're accomplishing is nothing, then their funding might be cut. Whereas if they let a few planes blow up, their funding will be increased. So what are their incentives again?
To let a few planes just accidentally slip through the cracks. But if you really want some great penetration testing stories from the real world, I recommend reading the book called, I think it's Red Cell by Richard Demo Dick Marchenko, who was the guy that created SEAL Team 6.
That's a heck of a name.
It is. And was a hell of a dude, man. Just some if you like the kind of, the shoot 'em up, and his first book was allegedly a biography, and then he wrote a string of fiction books along the same lines. But Red Cell was allegedly, if you believe the stories that he tells, was his, Navy SEALs. The Red Cell was the group that penetration tested the military bases. Any of these.
They have no sense of humor about that sort of thing.
I know, military bases, all of the high level targets you could think of, in the United States and wherever else, they would go and they would see what they could do and then really embarrass whoever was in charge of those bases by proving, they would do things like steal weapons or just plant little, Post-it notes somewhere like, you've been pwned, I'm sure with better language that, maybe in the general's desk, that when he comes in the next day, he realizes that maybe the security isn't so good. So, I understand these are the best of the best that could do that, but the TSA, not exactly the same kind of force that the military protecting their bases is. So I would just understand
they don't even have
that,
SWAT teams,
which is sad. It goes back to
as somebody who's going to be flying later today, I'm actually okay that the TSA doesn't have SWAT teams.
Because you might be hands on the luggage rack and being strip searched within no time. But again, I'm sure the TSA actually makes you more of a docile creature.
But I have two massive handicaps when it comes to the TSA. I have a low opinion of government and an inability to keep my mouth shut.
Which is why your wife elbows you.
Which is why my wife does all the talking. Yes.
Just pretend you don't even speak English. That might be a better way to go, or you're a mute and you just can't say anything.
Or pretend that I speak English because none of these fuckers do.
I'm just waiting for you to show up at an airport and they're looking at your ID and go, "You that podcast guy?" And it's all downhill from there.
Yeah. And then I'll be like, no. Are you? Do you donate to the podcast? Oh, yes. Oh, in that case, I am.
Yes, I am. That's me. Can I get right through security now? No. I've heard enough. We're gonna have to take you to this other room here, and we're gonna have to make you do the stupid human tricks again.
Yeah, and then they'd be like, are you on that Grumpy Old Ben's podcast? Yes, I am. Oh, that podcast, those guys. What's your name? Oh, my name is Darren. I don't even know this guy, Ryan. I know that
ID. But I check your ID. Check your ID at the door. But okay, here's the other thing with the TSA. You have just the overall baggage too. And how
I have
big
plenty
these
of
bags
baggage. Oh, you mean physical bags?
I believe
I'm sorry.
you do. Yes. And the kind of stuff in those bags that have, lit on fire, and cause problems. And, all of these concepts too. I mean, what's your thoughts on when somebody checks bags on a flight and then who knows what happens? Maybe they have a grabber. Maybe they get the runs because they had bad Mexican for breakfast and they don't make the flight. And it's like, oh, this guy's bags are on the flight, but he didn't make it. So now we have to empty the whole cargo hold looking for their bags.
I do know that the tendency to completely inconvenience and screw over all travel plans for everybody involved is probably not the right way to do it. The way that it used to happen back in, when we were kids, seems a lot more sane, which is you fucked up and now your possessions are going to another city and we'll return.
Well, here's my question.
And then you have to pay shipping to get them back.
Well, if you have to go and get the bag off the plane because the person didn't show up, I'm really wondering about your security measures, because technically you're putting these bags through whatever scanners and stuff, but you're saying because the person didn't show up, we now have to question whether our security measures testing it to get it on the plane.
Exactly what I was about to say, which is that if you're, the problem with, I guess the bag is now going to Tennessee or okay, your bag is taking the trip. We can't have that. We have to move everything. Well, why do you decide to do that? Well, because somebody might put a bag on the plane. Then stop putting bags on the planes when the person isn't there or something. Just figure it out.
It doesn't make sense because you're also then assuming that somebody would never put anything in their bags and then get on the plane.
Yeah. They might, there's always they might intentionally put a bomb in the bag. And I'm like, yes, that's what a laptop is.
It's possibly. at any given time. I mean, at least, is this still happening where they make you open up your laptop and turn it on? I haven't seen that in a while, but I know that was
the last time. Well, okay, the last time I was through, they actually, and here's another reason why the TSA theater is complete bullshit. They had two wildly different systems in place between Seattle and Kona. In Seattle, I had to take the laptop out of the bag, but then I could just put the laptop in a tray. So I'd have to
by itself.
Yeah, in a tray by itself in the bag, and then they didn't worry about it. But in Seattle, they also said, you don't have to worry about taking your shoes off, presumably because the lines were really long and they didn't want to have people fucking with their laces in line and making it even slower. Because, of course, trying to keep the lines up, that is an actual tangible priority as opposed to, say, stopping the illusionary terrorists they're chasing. But when I got to Kona on the other end, they didn't give a flying fuck about my laptop. But if my shoes were anywhere near me, then they freaked out. Also, the Kona airport is one of the only places in the world where I have personally, not counting the abstract racism inherent in the SJW ideology, I have personally been subject to direct racism there because on the Hawaiian Islands, if you are not of Hawaiian descent, you are, some kind of pathetic gaijin, especially if you're a tourist. Because if you live there, you tan enough that, like my mom who looks like leather now, then you look like a local. But anybody with really pale skin, or even worse, somebody leaving with sunburned skin, it's like, oh, tourist. And then the anecdote is we had first class tickets and they wouldn't even talk to us, and they only let the people, they started like going through the line and pulling out all the people who looked like locals.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you had "This is not a bomb" written on your shoes, right?
Maybe.
That would be a great shoe line.
I do remember there was a flight where I was wearing a t-shirt. I have a t-shirt that I can probably take a photo of it, but it is a picture of a city skyline on fire and a couple of broken skyscrapers and stuff. And in the foreground, there are two mercenaries looking at each other, and one has got his head down looking sheepish, and the other one looks angry. And the caption is Rule 1, pillage, then burn. And I wore that. And one of the buildings kind of looks like the Seattle Space Needle.
This wasn't acceptable for the
well, I never showed it to the TSA because, of course, everywhere I go, I wear Hawaiian Aloha shirts anyway. You can ask Rhino about that one. But my wife made me button up the Aloha shirt over it so that it wasn't showing when we went through security. She didn't think that was an appropriate choice. I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, come on. This is why humor's dead. Nobody can take a joke anymore. Even this whole thing. I mean, again, I know you are a freedom of speech guy, but I bet you're not going to say the word bomb in an airport.
The problem is I might, which is one of the reasons why I have taken it under advisement that I need to shut the fuck up and let my wife talk.
Does she bring like a roll of duct tape that in case things get a little out of hand?
She wields a withering stare that will curdle milk. So it's effective.
Well, otherwise she'll never take you on vacation again.
Yeah.
I'm sure your mom would welcome her without you.
I think that's probably true.
Where's Ryan? Left him at home. Party! You're not even a professional podcaster. I mean, you're not even going to get up at like 5 or 6 in the morning to do a live show next week. I mean, that is not being a professional. Adam Curry would not give you the thumbs up on this one.
No, Blitz, I've not actually done that.
What's the question? What haven't you done? There's something you haven't done?
It's from the troll room and it's not appropriate and it really shouldn't be repeated on this podcast. So of course I'm going to read it. Which is, he says, Sir Pemrose goes commando and waggles his junk while blurting out to the TSA, hang loose, bruh. And I would just say that I would never do something like that because that's not how I speak.
well, not the bra part.
Yeah.
But here's a question for you. That is a flippant comment from Blitz, but let's be honest, that would make the TSA's job a lot easier if they had to make everybody strip down naked before walking through the checkpoint. Are we that far from that as at this point?
I mean, my comment earlier about the TSA job being terrible, one of the reasons is that they have to look at the naked scans of a lot of people. And you think that, hey, you know, whenever a model, you know, goes through, that'd be pretty awesome. So it'd be like, yeah, I'd love that job. Well, the problem is that for every hot supermodel that goes through your line, there's 1,000 people that you really don't want to see naked.
For every Adriana Lima, there are 1,000 Sir Bemroses.
Well, you want to see me naked. Trust me. I'm pretty sexy.
Yeah, that'll be on.
In fact, that photo might be in the show notes.
Okay, wait. You don't want anybody to click on the show notes link, do you?
Well, no. The link will be removed in the Patreon version, of course.
Right, of course.
You'll have to donate.
No, I think you donate to not get the link,
yeah,
right?
That's what I meant.
Okay, that makes way more sense. But there's nothing that I enjoy about flying except getting to the destination.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's like you said, they've been nickeled and dimed. I mean, here are the things that have changed from when I was a kid. 1, there was no TSA. 2, you didn't have to pay for your bags. 3, I don't think there was a limit on the weight of the bags. You would actually got a paper ticket in the mail long before the day of your flight and basically just walked in the airport, checked your bags, walked to the gate. There was no security. If somebody was dropping you off, you know, as a kid, I went down to Florida to visit my aunt and uncle and my cousins, and my parents could just take me right to the gate, make sure I got on the plane. It was a much simpler concept. It was a much more enjoyable concept. The seats at that point were not so close together that you couldn't fit. You actually got, granted, it was what we would be getting as like a frozen, meal now, like a Hungry Man or something, but you got food on the plane. You got drinks on the plane. Nobody was charging you for that crap except for alcohol. You could just go to the bathroom, which I think Ryanair, one of these, maybe the one, I think it was Ryanair over in the UK and in Ireland, that actually charges people to use the head. So, you didn't have any of these problems. And these are all things that have changed in our lifetime, which has made the whole concept of flying suck.
How do they handle that charge? Do they have like a coin operated bathroom door?
Probably. If you don't have a coin.
Yeah, and actually it's not coin. Of course it's Apple Pay, NFC or something. And if you don't have an Apple phone,
or they have a token. Right. If you don't have, this is also, where a lot of this stuff is going, and it worries me because I saw this the other day that your airline tickets are just going to be on an app on your phone. There was one of them that actually, I think there was an airline that was starting an app that this is where your ticket was just going to be in your phone. And this kind of stuff. That's really a
real problem for OTG.
You think?
Well,
it is already.
Yeah.
It is already with things like Major League Baseball forcing season ticket holders to have the barcode on their phone.
Yeah,
you can't get paper tickets.
Forcing anybody to watch Major League Baseball is cruel and unusual punishment already.
So yeah, making them have a phone is no big deal. But yeah, imagine that. You can't get on an airplane unless you have a smartphone with your ticket information, your itinerary. It is not good for the OTG people. It is, again, it's under the guise of making things easier for you. But the bottom line is just more tracking that they can see exactly where you are, what you're doing. I'm sure once you get to the airport, you're not going to be tracked at all.
That way they would know
where you are. Is it? Yeah, I guess that
everything is for your convenience. Even the inconvenient things are for your convenience.
Totally. Now it's sad that it gets to the point to where if you really have to take a lot of luggage with you for an extended trip, it's probably less expensive
it's
and way
cheaper
easier
to ship it.
Yeah, it really is. It's like, just take your stuff, put it in, give it to UPS or, the post office, whoever you trust, and ship it off 2 days beforehand, and it'll get there the same day you do. And which would actually make the airport experience a whole lot better, not having to carry the bag, because there's nothing worse. And then what do you feel about the people that bring the carry-ons that are the exact maximum size that they can be, and everybody wants to throw those in the bins. It's you're supposed to check your luggage.
To be honest, I totally understand what they're doing, and I intend to do the same thing. Well, not actually exactly this shape, because I'm taking a laptop bag, and it's going to have half of what I pack in it. But
and you're going to throw that in the upper bin.
Oh hell no! It's going to be under the seat in front of me because I want access to that shit.
Well, yeah. Well, you got to have your.
Do you remember the days? Talking about seat, I have to go back to the fucking seat size. There was a time when I was actually able to pull out a laptop and use it on the plane because the next seat in front of me wasn't 2 inches away from my face.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
No, there will be no laptop use.
Have a tablet.
Yeah,
which is why some of these airlines at least put a nice little screen in front of you that you can watch the in-flight entertainment on.
Yeah, for a small fee.
Well, no, I mean you could see the movie. You just had to pay if you want the headphones.
Yeah,
and there was also a time where they didn't limit. Although I think this may be okay now. This was also another weird thing to where. I remember going, this was back again in probably 1987, 88, going to Florida myself. And before the plane was taking off, I put my Walkman, put the headphones on, was listening to a cassette as, the plane taxied and took off. And then it went for a long period of time of no electronic devices during that initial takeoff.
Yeah, you need to make sure all electronic devices are shut off. My absolute favorite with that was when I had a Kindle and I shut it off and then they came by and looked at it. This was early in the days when e-ink was not well known. And I had it off and sitting on the thing in front of me. And they looked at it and said, "We're going to need you to shut that off." And I'm like, "It is off." Well, no, look at it's on the screen. Like it's
right. There's something on the screen. I don't care what it is, boy. Turn it off.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work that way. Or the concept of make sure your phone is in airplane mode. I mean, really, how are you going to fucking know how many phones aren't in airplane mode?
The hilarious thing about it is that there has never been an incident ever of anybody's consumer electronics fucking with the communications or electronics on the plane. It's just never happened.
But there
was one report where they thought the possibility of emissions from an electronic device could, under certain circumstances, cause particular readings to pop up in some of the non-critical systems or something like that. But here's the thing: all of the systems that really rely on unless you're bringing an EMP on the plane, I mean, yeah, you can probably mess something up there. But all of the systems that actually rely on carefully calibrated radio systems, the antennas are on the outside of the plane, and most of these planes have a metal skin turning them into Faraday cages. You're not gonna get interference, especially not from a quarter-watt RF antenna or Bluetooth or something that generates almost no power.
But at least you have something that can make your seatmate totally freak out when they realize that the plane is about to take off and your cell phone's not in airplane mode. People go crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, my cell phone is going to be powered down the entire time, not because of anything they say, but because, as soon as I get off of this podcast, I'm not communicating with any of you for the next week.
Well, that's good, because I'm going to communicate with your brother, Tony Bemrose, who wants to do an episode in your stead. He wants to replace you. I think he looks up to you, and he wants to be you, and he wants to take a shot at being a grumpy old Ben. I don't know.
He has always wanted to be me, but if you claim that he looks up, you're going to get an argument about that.
What are you saying? He's taller than you now?
No, what I'm saying is that he's a very proud person who seems to think that being just like me, he's a little deluded into thinking that that's not the ideal human form.
I don't know if I could argue with that. I mean,
yes, you'd better be able to if you're going to have him on the show.
No, I think this is all just going to be his thought for the show is why Ryan is wrong or how Ryan has been wrong. So it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody involved. and we'll see.
Yeah, I don't
exactly
even
what
know
day.
how. I mean, this is going to be some kind of weird show where your topic is fictional.
I mean, you've been wrong at least once or twice, according to Tony, your brother. So I'm sure that we might want to take, if anybody has any questions, here's a good chance. If you had any questions about Ryan that he won't answer about his growing up or about him in general, feel free to send those to Darren@grumpyoldbens.com, and we can pose those questions to Ryan's brother when he has a chance to speak unfettered and uncensored by his older brother, Ryan Bemrose. So you definitely want to tune in for that one. But Ryan's going to be off having fun in Hawaii, doing the things. You're not going to go like walk on an active volcano like those people down in wherever that was.
Well, you understand that the entirety of Hawaii is an active volcano, right?
Oh, so I mean, this really could be your farewell episode then. So if Hawaii happens to go up, then maybe Tony will have to replace you full time. I'm not really sure. We'll have to check into that. We hope you're going to have a fun, enjoyable trip. I mean, I want to hear the stories afterwards. I want to hear the TSA stories. I would like to hear all about, well, I mean, maybe take a picture on the plane of those nice small seats that you have to get in and rack yourself in for the 6-hour or so flight. See, that is getting on the upper end of even where I want to fly. As far as, you said, how far would you drive? The plane, these flights now, and isn't there one now? Anybody in the troll room can help out with this one. But isn't there something now from like New York to Australia that's almost like a 24-hour flight? I mean, it just seems like it is, pushing the envelope. And if it was like a train where you actually had room and you could actually kick back and not be slammed in like sardines, maybe that would be okay. But I really even question, I mean, there you'd have to have multiple pilots, obviously, on the plane if it's a 24-hour flight. But they're pushing the envelope as far as that goes, how far these long haul flights can go. And I mean, one thing I am kind of intrigued by is why there hasn't been anything replacing, or is it just the cost? Why there's nothing that has replaced the Concorde, the rich guys' way of getting from the United States over to England in a fraction of the time that us peons in these slow moving airplanes that only go like 500-600 miles an hour. How come there's no new Concorde? Why is it is it a cost thing?
Well, actually, I think cost is one of the big reasons, but the other reason is probably because there are militaries who would complain about shit going supersonic. I mean, if they genuinely think that people are going to be flying planes into buildings again, if they ever let you, do you think they really want planes in supersonic?
You'd have to have really good aim to fly into a building at supersonic speeds.
That doesn't really matter. The difficulty of it is not really that important. If your goal is security theater, you just need to talk up how it's possible and how your efforts, despite how much they cost, are preventing and protecting you from this terrible fate.
So you want to learn how to fly? No, I just want to learn how to steer the plane. The takeoff, landing. I'm not really interested in either of those.
I would actually love to fly. It turns out, if you want to talk about legal discrimination, the colorblindness actually was a total non-starter for being able to operate a plane.
And that is just because of the gauges and things that are used, or
well, it's quite possible to change up the instruments. It's not that so much as there are. I mean, you're basically right. The problem is that there are color signals that are necessary and used in the common protocols. In this case, I think like things like runway lights. It'll be a long row of red lights that say you're going the wrong way and a long row of green lights that say follow this taxiway or something. I don't know. But it's one of many protocols that has been in use for a really long time, and everybody's used to it and everybody uses it and every airport has it installed, and they can't really change the protocol without severely disrupting everything. But it turns out that, yes, if you can't pick up on signals of color with no other indication whatsoever, then you might be getting the wrong information. And I think we did our accessibility episode, but yeah, basically if you're ever designing a protocol, then never ever make a signal that relies on color and nothing else.
And that could be changed. It would just take a lot to do it. In the
it would just take an effort.
Ned points out,
and it's much easier to discriminate against colorblind people.
Yeah, well, you're not important. Richard Branson is making the next version of the Concorde, if you will, the replacement, something even faster. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes to light. The one interesting thing about pilots, though, if I'm not incorrect, is they all must speak English. That seems to be discriminatory, isn't it?
No.
All pilots must speak English.
No, because if they don't speak English, I can't understand them.
Well, neither can air traffic control, I guess. And that gets to be maybe where the problem is. I don't know. But we're going to expect a full report on your trip.
Oh, trust me, I'll have 2 weeks worth of stuff to bitch about when we return.
No, you'll have like 2 days worth of things to bitch about because nobody's going to be, Ryan's going to be like, in Kona, the weather was too nice. And I had to like sit out on the beach and eat like all this fresh fish.
Oh, yeah.
And then there were these hula girls and it was just horrible.
So I have to let you know, one of the things that was recently installed at my mom's house that I'm very much looking forward to is they have just installed an outdoor shower right next to the pool. And so, they get the privacy screens and whatnot. So you don't even have to go into a stuffy enclosed bathroom to take a shower anymore. You can now just go out with your soap and shampoo and shower outside. Not something that happens around here.
Well, it could, but it gets really bad in the winter.
I get cold showers outside here all the time, but I'm usually wearing clothes and I don't take soap and shampoo.
Right. It's just called rain.
Yeah.
There. And I'm glad that you pointed out the privacy screens. Otherwise, I was going to start questioning the parties going on at your mom's house. That's valid question to question anyway.
Let's just say that, the concept of how far the apple falls from the tree. My mom, for better or worse, she is a Bemrose. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's the safest way to go. But yeah, we don't want to hear you complaining about how nice Hawaii was. But I'm assuming that
you're going to hear about it.
The getting there and getting back will be where the good stories are. And, point out anything that you see that has now changed recently with the flying experience. Maybe the seats are going to be even smaller than the last time you went. And maybe
at some
even
point
more uncomfortable.
I'm still waiting for the advance in flight where they just put everybody into stasis and throw them into a cargo hold and then unfreeze them on the other end.
That's what I want. Drug people, it doesn't even matter. Just throw them in the plane somewhere.
I mean, they're already stacking people like cordwood. Let's just make us not remember the experience. That'll make it better.
Well, yeah, let's briefly talk about that because we haven't even talked about the fact that there are people that have suggested, I think this was Ryanair again, because they're the ones that seem to really want to push the whole people as cattle concept. They were the ones that came up with the
Ryan
concept.
Always demeaning people.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that your airline? I don't know. That they want to have, it's more of like a bar stool thing rather than a seat where you're almost like, fully upright.
Oh, that sounds
and
so
strapped in on like a little bicycle seat. And, but this is something because, if you're standing up, this is kind of like in space, nobody can hear you scream. When you're standing up, there's no need for legroom. So as long as the cabin is tall enough for you,
why not just get a crack team of surgeons on either end and just have them dismember your body so that it's easier to store. And then on the other end, they can sew all the parts back on. I mean, has anyone looked into that?
Probably. I mean, if it would save the airlines money, this concept of trying to fit every last human resource into an airplane that they can, and without again, this is when people do statistics and all this, like you said, with the width of the parking spot. Nobody is going in and making these calculations going, oh, well, here we got a guy that's 6'6" and 250 pounds. No, They're like, oh, gee, what's average?
Well,
and it doesn't probably what's the average between men and women? What's like the average human being? I'm guessing, like 5'6", 5'7", and 100 something pounds. I don't know.
The average
but it's
American
small.
male is 5'10".
So they're basing that. They're like, well, nobody will be
female, I
taller
think, is
than average,
5'8".
right?
Yeah, and nobody. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like with the parking lots where you can't just make half the spots be small because they're if you actually happen to know that precisely half the people that are going to come to your place have compact cars, you can't just make half the spots be small and expect that the compact cars will all go into those and therefore they'll always reserve the bigger spots for the whoever drives a van or a big jacked up pickup truck, because
well, you can make the spots that size.
The biggest spot in the lot will be filled up by that fuckhead in a BMW who doesn't want his car scratched and really doesn't give a shit about anyone else.
I mean, I see that sometimes in parking garages where it's like compact car only, and nobody pays attention to that.
No, you'll see compact car only, but it's hard to read because of the big fucking Dodge Ram parked on it.
Yes. So it doesn't work. And again, without some kind of sanity in the overall spaces being large enough. And I mean, I get it when you're looking to fill every last inch, that it would make much more sense in a parking lot if you had one row for compact cars, if you had maybe a half a row or something for the big pickups that you really need it for, one for SUVs with varying sizes. But when you deal with people, and that's the factor that always comes into any of these things, that's where things start failing. And that's unfortunate, but there's nothing that is ever going to change that. And we hope you make it through TSA without getting arrested. I mean, now that everybody knows that's listening live in the troll room that Ryan Bemrose is flying out of Seattle this afternoon to Hawaii, I mean, it wouldn't be hard for somebody to really make your life miserable. So I don't even know why you would tell people these things.
These people are already doing that. And also, stop giving away all my secrets.
One of the best bits. Do you remember the Sam Kinison bit about breaking up with somebody? And it was just so people tell me that breaking up was going to be so hard that that she was crazy and she was going to go nuts. But no, she was great. I said, baby, and then we had this tearful goodbye. Then I got to the airport and I'm going through the metal detectors, and all of a sudden I hear, he's got a gun. Get your hands on the luggage. And I'm looking around like, hey, some asshole brought a gun. And I realized it was me. That's always what I think of when going through TSA. If you pissed somebody off recently, you might have had access to your bags before you get to the airport. Always check your bags carefully.
And on that note, I think I need to stop podcasting and go help out the sour-faced individual who is currently packing my bags and is really stressed out about this trip.
Well, see, there you go. She's packing your bags. You want to know what's in there.
Yes.
You don't want to. Sir, why do you have a gun?
No, I think I have some making nice to do. That's going to have to happen. So I think it's time to sign off of here.
We do need to, before you make nice to Dame Bemrose, we do need to make nice to Radix for his contribution for this episode of Grumpy Old Benz. We appreciate it. He lowered his standards, and one, by donating to Grumpy Old Benz, but two, by using PayPal, something I know that he hates. And we are going to be adding a P.O. box very soon for people that want to send in things using the mail for, of course, purposes of anonymity and all that. And if we appreciate it, Radix, thank you. And if you want to contribute to the show, grumpyoldbenz.com, click that little donate button. It's also the place you go to subscribe. Apple, Android, Stitcher, email, however you want to subscribe, you can do that. And we wish you well, Ryan, on your trip. Lisa, of course, we should be wishing her well because she's going to have
she's going to need it more than I do.
That is absolutely true. So wish her a good trip, even though she's with you. And we'll look forward to talking to your brother Tony before your return, and then to hearing about your trip and your response, of course, to the podcast and everything Tony said. So it'll be like point, counterpoint.
So let's go ahead and record the response before the show because I know it's going to be, he's wrong.
It's like a Karnak thing. Okay, what's the response?
my response is he's wrong.
And that'll be the quickest show we had ever done. So until next time, I am Darren O'Neill, coming to you live from a bunker deep in the heart of Middle America, just outside of Chirac, where I'm not getting on any metal flying tubes anytime soon.
And from America's left cloak, English hard.
You have been drugged already.
From America's left coast, where the appearance of security is job one, I'm Ryan Bemrose.
You are listening to NoAgendaStream.com, the best source of music, talk, and infotainment in the universe. NoAgendaStream.com. Up next, Hookers and Blow.
Jane, do you remember what you told me when we were standing in the bathroom midnight? Baby, we were so messed up. She said, well, you can be mine, I wouldn't mind being yours. I wouldn't take up your time. All the
listening to NoAgendaStream.com. All talk, no commercials, no agenda.
Hello and welcome to Dvorak Horowitz Unplugged, an hour-long discussion of activity in the financial markets around the world, featuring columnist John C. Dvorak and money manager Andrew Horowitz. This conversation is casual and unrehearsed. Let's join John and Andrew now.
I'm John C. Dvorak.
And I'm Andrew Horowitz.
And there's a leg there.
There's a leg.
But this is part 2 of our retrospective of 2019.
Yeah, and thanks again to Ryan Radisky, who put this all together, slaving for hours, days, weeks, minutes, months to put this all together. A total of 1,400 clips broken down into various segments, and we're going to kind of hit each. So where do we start?
Well, we're going to start with IPOs on part 2 here. It was a weird year with some of the best and worst IPOs, and including the monster from Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a kind of an up and down thing. You had a pretty good cover. We had great coverage of it, but it wasn't anything like the 1999 era.
Mm-hmm.
But it has some huge flops, and not all of them at the same time. It was here and there. I think it was highlighted by WeWork, at least, and I guess Uber, Lyft.
I mean, I think this is a good second from the 1990s, though.
Yeah, but 1990s was like it was a big buildup, and then everything collapsed. This was like a buildup, collapse, buildup, collapse. It was just it was like a roller coaster. I thought it was more entertaining.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, let's take a listen. Quickly moving through a few things here because we're got lots to talk about. Lyft is coming out with their IPO. They're planning on selling 31 million shares to the public, somewhere between $62 and $68 per share, creating a valuation of about $15 billion, and they're oversubscribed.
Isn't that amazing?
Actually, $20 billion market valuation, and they have a two-tiered share class, which people are not happy about. But
I wouldn't be.
Nobody cares. Let's talk about Lyft, not lifting. Final price that was agreed upon was $72.
Whoa, that was a big number as far as I was concerned.
Yes,
I'm used to the olden days when the IPO numbers were like 15.
Oh yeah, 15. There's a lot of those. There's a lot of negativity around this name. Options are coming on the market, I think, tomorrow. Can't really short the shares too well right now because until it kind of clears, the IPO clears in the market, the shares out there, and there's a lot of these players that are saying, the balance sheet, like Kramer. Oh, the balance sheet looks really good. I'm thinking, balance sheet looks good. First of all,
how does the balance sheet look good? They're losing tons of money.
They lost $2 billion last year. Okay, but that's on the income statement. The balance sheet, what's good about a balance sheet of a company that hasn't really offered any debt out there yet and just did an IPO? I mean, what could be good now? There's a lot of money that comes to the balance sheet after the IPO, of course. Right, a lot of cash comes on the books.
Yeah, boom.
But
balance sheet looks good.
Yeah, it looks good after the IPO.
We just soaked the public.
So it's interesting. There's that crowd that says, it's trading at X times, it's X times revenue. Which is
X times revenue.
So I'm thinking to myself, a multiple of revenue on a company that's losing money makes no sense to me.
It makes sense to somebody trying to take your money,
I suppose. Have you been following the crybaby Lyft situation?
I may have. I don't know anything under that terminology.
Well, that's mine. What happened a few days ago, I think it was over the weekend, Lyft has threatened litigation against Morgan Stanley, accusing the firm of supporting short selling for investors.
Yeah, you actually sent me an email about this.
Yeah.
It's a very funny story.
So it seems that they're accusing Morgan Stanley of being involved in some short selling for investors who are subject to lockup agreements. That you have individuals that have lockup periods. They cannot sell their shares. They're insiders. They're pre-IPO people. There's a bunch of different reasons why. And what they did on the side was they set up accounts and some deal in this kind of in this investment deal that Morgan Stanley created, allegedly, in order to hedge their position, essentially, because they can't sell what they have till a certain date. So now Morgan Stanley's in hot water They're also involved and supposedly going to be involved in the Uber IPO, which is probably going to put a crimp in that. It will be one of the largest IPOs of all time and the largest since Alibaba in 2014. And this is on the heels of Lyft.
This has got to be the mark of insanity. Could be the end of the market.
Oh.
Don't you think? I mean, don't you think this is nuts? This company has no prospect of ever making money. It's going to be the largest IPO ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to invest in, unless you guarantee me maybe it'll do well in the first couple of days. But I don't like the idea of a company that's based on a blatant lie.
What you mean about them making
this big company began with, so did Lyft, with the concept, the bogus concept of ride sharing. Oh, this is not a taxi company. I happen to just coincidentally be driving around and I thought I'd pick somebody up because I'm part of this app and I'm not going to share because I'm going to San Francisco. So I'm going to share a ride with someone.
Pinterest is going public. I think they're going to be pricing somewhere in the $15 range or something.
I don't know. Where's the money in Pinterest?
Well, I don't even understand the whole thing. You put up a picture and then what? It's like, oh, I like that picture. Okay, and
it's a website for collectors of pictures.
But you could also sell stuff that way. I mean, that's the whole point of all this.
Yes,
right?
I don't know I've never bought anything from Pinterest. I bought stuff from Etsy. I think that operation is probably solid and is not dishonest.
Etsy is publicly traded. I mean, isn't Pinterest like an Instagram for the web? Well, you could do it on your.
Not the way I see it, because when you go to Pinterest, you get a whole page of stuff from people. There's a lot of borderline porn, but not the kind of really gross porn that you used to find on Tumblr.
That would have been something that could have been gone public, and there would have been some money in that. Uber IPO is coming. The Uber IPO, the estimated valuation for Uber and for the value for the IPO was cut down about 20% after the latest valuation due to the poor performance of Lyft. They also reported a net loss attributable to the company for the first quarter of 2019, for the first quarter, of about $1 billion on revenue of $3 billion. So I'm just thinking out loud here for a second. What is the story with a $3 billion overall revenue and $1 billion net loss? And why can't they make money? What am I missing here?
I have no idea. There's something wrong with their numbers.
It makes no sense to me. It would seem to me logical. Maybe is it possible that there is such a need to continually update their software? They need so much on the technical side. I mean, yes, I can see an update, but $1 billion loss in a quarter on $3 billion of rev. I just don't understand it. WeWork is IPOs coming as well. I think it's just called like We Now, or just called Work or something like that. Another company losing an incredible amount of money. So I don't know, when do you become profitable at this point?
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Are you familiar with WeWork?
Yes.
Have you ever been to one of their operations? Taking a look inside?
I've not. I've seen a lot of videos. There seems to be a lot of napping, coffee drinking, lactation, and people gathering.
It's more for socializing.
That's what it looks
sounds
like. It's like a daytime party.
Yeah. A mixer.
It starts at 10 o'clock probably with some whiteboard somewhere with what we're ordering in.
Yeah.
We're
trying a new restaurant this time. Anybody in? Who's in?
Yeah. Hey, Andrew, what you doing? I'm going to the coffee machine. You want to come? No, I'm doing stuff. Leave me alone. You have a stand-up desk, and you probably have some of these stand-up desks have hammocks underneath them now. You can hang a hammock underneath. I've
seen such a thing. Yes. Would you put a cat or a dog in it?
No, you can put yourself in it.
How big is this desk?
A desk is whatever, 6 feet long. So you put a hammock underneath, you get there, and then you push the button, it raises you up. I swear. I'm not kidding.
It's like George Costanza's desk when he was working at the
Yankees. Worked underneath, right. But you have that going on. You have these, a little bicycle thing underneath your desk. That's the kind of place. You have like a little pedal thing under your desk. that probably generates the light in your office. They're so busy doing everything else but working. Dow Jones dropped 500 points.
Is there any IPOs that you're seeing that look like they're worthwhile?
I mean, in hindsight, of course, there's a few of them. Beyond Meat, which I think is beyond ridiculous how the pricing is where it's at, up like 200%. I mean, the Uber's going to be oversubscribed probably, and people are going to want to be in on it. But other than that, these IPOs, most of them, like WeWork coming out, they're not making money. They're losing money. I'm not really interested in buying a company that's losing money.
Yeah. And they may continue to lose money for all you know.
And all they talk about is, Amazon lost money all those years. I'm like, oh, God. Everybody's an Amazon now. But Amazon was a whole different deal.
You can't equate Amazon with anything.
Right. Beyond Meat, an IPO that came out about a week or so ago, they make a...
I guess there are two of these meat companies that came out or are coming out.
Yeah, the other one's the Impossible Burger. You know what this is, don't you?
No.
Soylent Green.
Ah.
I am convinced it is Soylent Green.
Yeah. Let's start with a look back on the .com boom days.
Oh, yes.
How many of these IPOs were money losing to this extent?
Well, many of them.
When Microsoft did an IPO, they weren't money losing. They were making money hand over fist.
That was the old days.
I believe Google was making money when it did its IPO.
But it wasn't a Peapod or Pets.com or some of these other companies that just became public, stock went crazy, and then went bankrupt.
Yeah, that was often the case.
The thing is with all these companies now, every single one of them is comparing themselves to Amazon. What does that have to do with ride sharing? So already we saw that Uber dropped their price down. And one of the things that happened was that when you have an IPO, there's underwriters. And the underwriters are the ones that help take it to market. So Morgan Stanley was the lead underwriter. Now, if you remember something, when Lyft came out, there was some shenanigans going on with Morgan Stanley, how they were shorting the stock on the side and created the ability for people to sell the stock short before it was actually shortable in the market. Remember that?
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah, that was a story we talked about. And I said at the time, wait a minute, Uber's using Morgan Stanley? This is going to be a problem. Morgan Stanley's, they weren't the lead underwriter in the last one, but they're the lead underwriting. Yeah, but remember this? This is Lyft was trying to sue Morgan Stanley.
I remember the lawsuit, but I didn't realize the mechanism. Well, I just probably forgot it.
So it was 2 weeks ago. But anyway, so now.
Hey, where's my vitamin B12?
All right, earnings. We have some earnings for some of the first-time IPOs. In other words, the first-time, the IPOs that had their first earnings report after their IPO. They probably sandbagged a bunch of stuff beforehand to bring it into the first earnings to get that momentum continuing from the IPO. Beyond Meat.
This could boost the price of the stock and everybody's happy.
Yep. So Beyond Meat came out. They beat on their first publicly traded earnings announcement. Not today.
So Meat beat?
Meat beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meat was beating the street. So the stock since Thursday night when they came out with their earnings was up 70% from Thursday night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a move.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stock had a market cap, I think, about $11 billion at the high. What is that?
For fake meat.
For fake meat. But the stock was down 25% today.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, there's no shares to short.
The end is nigh.
Yeah. A couple of things we have here that are interesting. Saudi Aramco. You know, this is the company that was going to be the largest IPO ever. This is the oil holdings of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
They're going to be holding their first investor earnings call in August. Now, they're not public yet. They pulled their public offering. That's what oil price were going down. So I guess they're going to be providing this transparency for possibly throwing the IPO back on the table, maybe in 2020.
Why not?
Yeah, they got oil stabilizing. So
the thing is, they got to get to make sure they got to hit. This is a timing thing. If the market, collapses or does what Elizabeth Warren's hoping for, that the market kind of falters and stumbles and has some issues, then this thing is going to be a flop.
We have an IPO on the way, Peloton. Everybody that I know that has one loves it. They do. They love it. So they're now putting out their official initial financial documents. They have a total of 1.4 million members, which I'm not sure what that exactly means. If all those people own bikes, or they're just subscribers that could possibly share other bikes, because you have to pay a monthly service charge for the service.
It's a bike that you buy, isn't it, when you have in your house, in your home gym?
Yeah, but you buy it, it's like $2,000.
Why do you have to pay a monthly for it? Why don't you just pay for it and then you got it? You own it now.
You could do that.
What's the deal?
You could do that, and then you won't have the opportunity to do a bike ride around France via virtual tour that they have on the screen in front of you.
This is their discriminatory expenses that you were talked about.
Discretionary, not discriminatory.
Discriminatory is the way I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
We have some IPO issues coming up. Music publishers have asked a federal judge to let them double their lawsuit against Peloton Interactive to $300 million, saying that the maker of stationary bicycles has streamed more than 2,000 workout videos used without permission. So the National Music Publishers Association said they're suing them for copyright infringement. And these allegedly illegal songs are from Adele, Beyonce, Ariana Grande, John Legend, Maroon 5. And they want to add 1,324 songs to their lawsuit. Now, I think this is really interesting because just as Peloton announced their IPO with the knowledge of the base lawsuit that was already standing there, now all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what? We're going to double that. We want $300 million. Peloton's looking to raise about $1.3 billion, wondering if this is just a pre-IPO squeeze.
Yeah. What do you think? Of course it is.
Yeah. Pay it off, we'll leave you alone. Proceed to the IPO. We've been talking about the WeWork IPO.
Yeah.
So what happened was that they were valued at $47 billion as of the latest valuation pop when SoftBank and a few other conglomerates and private equity firms put money into this private equity fund, pre-IPO. And then we saw that things like big loans, like a $4 billion loan was being taken pre-IPO, which I was scratching my head about. Then we saw that the owner and founder pulled out like $750 million. And what owner and founder does that pre-IPO with it right around the corner, right?
That makes no sense.
Right. So now the valuation went to like 22 billion, 25 billion or something like that. Now all of a sudden the valuation may be cut again to as low as 10 to 15 billion. And now, as of just the most recent, SoftBank says it's going to invest another $750 million, which again makes no sense to me at all. This SoftBank is starting to look a little bit more like an Enron to me every day, or some of these other companies that just spread themselves way too thin.
It's always looked like that to me.
Yeah.
But I've never seen any evidence that it is. It just looks that way.
Well, WeWork is now pulling its IPO, at least temporarily.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Have you been following this WeWork fiasco?
Yeah, I have been following. It's like and fiasco seems to be the right word for it.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised by the way it's been going.
It's pretty amazing. It almost looks like a house of cards, where there's the real potential for a bankruptcy of this company. SoftBank, which is Japan's one of their biggest private equity firms, they are the biggest investor in WeWork, and all of a sudden they're losing a lot of money. Now the last thing I heard was that they're maybe valued at $10 billion. And remember something, they own a tremendous amount of real estate around the country. And this guy, the CEO, Adam Neumann, the founder, he owns a very weird, there's something in his contract with the company that can't be removed. And some other weird things about his ownership and voting shares. So this is kind of entering the world, and he's very out there. So now SoftBank is trying to oust him, trying to get rid of him. This is very similar to the Uber deal. Before Uber went public, they got rid of the CEO. They brought in a new team. Remember the whole thing? And the valuation came down because now all of a sudden there was a realization. The worst thing these companies can do is go public. They can keep on getting money on the private markets and get this ridiculous valuation and not have to report to the public and not be under the scrutiny of public markets. That's why these all fail. But you know what? It's the owners who have this vision and they have this desire to go out there and, rule the world and go public and bang the gavel at the New York Stock Exchange and feel that somehow they're right, that they built this company and now it should be public. A lot of investors start backing out and not giving them money. They can have a real problem because it's starting to look a little bit like a Ponzi scheme. And if there is this massive ownership of property that they have, and a big part in New York and other major cities around the country, what's going to happen to corporate real estate if this has to be spit back on the market?
Oh, good one.
Right?
Yeah, right.
This is something. So WeWork, first of all, did pull their IPO. We know that SoftBank wants to and did, in fact, successfully remove the founder. And now there's some concern that the company who has all these fixed expenditures because of the lease deals they signed, and they have these variable deals with small businesses and on short-term leases that could possibly move in and out. There's concern they only have about money enough to fund their deal because they have a $700 million cash burn per quarter through mid-2020.
Wow.
So one of the things that's really interesting to think about here is what really happened here. To me, it looks like a securitized real estate deal that was wrapped up in a commercial wrapper and funded by either loans, private equity, and private investors with cheap money. In other words, a massive real estate scam or a massive real estate kind of deal that was very similar to a lot of the stuff that was happening with real estate back in the day.
What is wrong with it? What's the thinking here? This is not a good time to be building. You're supposed to build during a really nasty downturn, technically, if you can do it.
WeWork created artificial demand, in my opinion, for office space on the commercial side. I do also believe there is a little bug in the background with the Airbnbs and the vacationrentals.com and all the various vacation style sites that have made it very easy for individuals to say, you know what, I'm going to buy a second home. And I'm not going to really worry about this because, I can get renters whenever I need them. WeWork, I've always said, is one recession away from bankruptcy. They may even be closer than that, it seems.
They may be one pre-recession away from bankruptcy.
But I think there's really something going on. Now, Airbnb is also going to be coming out with an IPO, and they decided, obviously, the IPO market is not very conducive for anything right now. So what they're doing is they're going to do with a direct listing to get around the whole normal IPO process. Seeing, hopefully doing something. A few other things. Peloton. The request to double the damages from $150 to $300 was approved by a court. And now they're going to have a $300 million. They may settle for less, but they're going to have to pay.
They have to.
And they're going to have to pay forward, though, on anything in the future. So that's going to be a big issue. They came out amazing how they pushed this thing out. That just tells you a lot about the lack of respect for the individual investor who they're throwing this crap on. So
yes, well, you think that's not new.
No, not new, but it was really a smoke job here on this one. I mean, they just threw it out there like, it doesn't matter. We have this big lawsuit. You got to take this. A great thing. Look at this great bicycle that sells for $2,045 a month, and we jacked up the price on it, but it's going to be good. It's an IPO. I've always said that if it's an IPO that I could put my money into, I don't want it because usually those are not good. Now, returning once again to the public markets, folks. these companies go in and out. They go in, they get privatized, they spin them back up for big profit. ARM Holdings, remember those guys? Right.
They're the ones who make most of the chips for the Apple products.
So they're owned by, right now owned by SoftBank.
Yeah, SoftBank bought them recently. I thought Intel should have bought them or AMD should have bought them. There's which makes me think that there's some fundamental reason Intel, AMD, or even Marvel or any of these companies didn't buy them. There's something screwy.
Well, they're going to be going back on the market, and I don't know why they are providing this information so far in the future, but they're expected to go to back to the into the public markets by 2023. Now, do we really need that much of advanced information?
I think it's a tease.
Just test the markets, test the interest.
No, to test to see if there's any private equity guys that want to pick it up.
They put money in. So maybe they got problems.
Yeah.
Maybe they got problems they need to inject. Well, maybe SoftBank, frankly, has a problem because they're losing their ass.
Maybe SoftBank wants to get rid of this operation.
Right,
they don't know. I always thought it was suspicious that SoftBank bought a semiconductor company of this nature, and a pure IP company like this, which is a very strange thing to do for a company that really is a software and holding company, publishing company. They do all these different things.
I also wonder if it has something to do with SoftBank. I think SoftBank has a real problem, and I think that they went on a buying spree without valuation control, and it can be seen by some of the things they bought, like the various ride-sharing companies they picked up, and some of the things in their portfolio are very questionable. Saudi Arabia, guess what? Restarting his Aramco IPO.
Yes. Yep.
Most profitable company in the world. Valuation anywhere from about $1.5 to $2 trillion, which they wanted to get to $2 trillion. That was a big push. And they sent out all their feelers and everybody going out banging on the doors of all the brokers and the folks that are going to push this on the public. What I don't understand about this deal is that Aramco is a state-owned company, and it has many, kind of the whole network of subsidiaries. So why would I want to buy a company, 10% position? Well, that's the whole position, but a position in a company that I have a minority interest in, that's run by the government, run by the state, that can pretty much do whatever they want with it. And if there is any accounting fraud, who's going to be the overseer? And it's going to be trading on the Saudi exchange anyway. So, if there is some kind of hanky-panky going on, there's no regulatory board or oversight board or anybody that's going to be looking into the accounting practices. Because
then who's going to buy this stock?
Oh, there'll be plenty of people, plenty of suckers.
You think it's a sucker stock?
They're just trying to liquefy a major piece.
Natural gas.
Yeah, no, they're trying to liquefy. They're trying to liquefy their oil because obviously oil prices are depressed compared to where they were, and pretty much their entire country lives on this. I mean, you got a $2 trillion company. I think it's $200 billion. I think it was like $200 billion in net profit a year.
Yeah, go straight into the government's coffers.
So now they're going to be able to just pick up another X amount of dollars and then try to just jack the price up on this to make some money on the offering.
Maybe.
Eventually buy back shares and take it private again.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was fun stuff on the IPO talk, but let's get segued into tech talk. I mean, how can we not talk about tech? It was a massive leader in the markets for 2019. Amazing gains. Companies like Microsoft and Apple and Facebook, just blew it out. And
yeah, despite how many times you shorted Facebook.
Yeah, I tried. I think we made once money on that in the game. But, a recent study I saw was that I think 20 plus or 30% of the gains in the S&P 500 last year were from like Apple, Microsoft, and maybe one other stock. But there were a lot of enhancements in the area of technology, a lot of blunders, a lot of issues related to privacy that came out. So let's get right into this, replay some of the highlights from over the year and see what we were talking about. Earnings season starts next week. We're looking for more pre-announcements, though. because we've seen several. We saw the one from Apple last week that really shook markets. Companies have been really missing the mark. Samsung Electronics came out with a number last night, down 29% on their earnings since a year ago, and they missed the mark from their analyst expectations by a country mile. And everybody's pretty nervous about this because they think they're going to really guide lower into the future.
Yeah.
That will be if they really start coming in short and guiding lower, and we see this somewhat of a one-hit wonder because of the tax situation, there's going to be a price to pay on that.
Maybe.
Sears on the brink of bankruptcy. It seems that the latest offer from Eddie Lambert wasn't sufficient, but then they came back and maybe it is sufficient, but they may have to shutter 400 stores or so if they can't get this going. Eddie Lambert has made his life effort to keep this monstrosity alive.
Why? You know, it's one of the great baffling stories of the generations is how a company like that, which was pretty much, if you look at their 1890 catalog, this was Amazon.
Yeah, it was. I agree.
And along with Montgomery Ward's, which means that Amazon had a competitor, which the real Amazon doesn't. But although it might. And they took that model and they turned it into the regular brick and mortar. They changed it from a mail order operation. They used to have a lot of little outlets, and they, for some reason, the whole original scheme, which seemed to have worked, it wasn't as big a deal once people were driving around to these stores, but it still had the underpinnings of an Amazon competitor that could have been leveraged. It's just a baffling story.
It could be that, it's not could be, it is that management failed miserably. The bag is bagged. Oh, this is about the Facebook face bag. U.S. regulators have met to discuss imposing a fine against Facebook for violating a legally binding agreement with the government to protect privacy of personal data. This is according to the Washington Post. The Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, has been investigating Facebook since last year. It has not finalized its findings in the probe, and they don't know the total penalty, but it's supposedly going to be big. Now, I don't know what big is. Is it 50 million? Is it $1 billion? I mean, I don't know what the number is. I have no idea. But I guess this whole issue of their privacy thing, it just keeps on leaking out that they held back information about what was really being allowed to escape. They knew about that whole deal with this is a major technology company. If they didn't know what was able to be released through the apps, through the quizzes, through the whole
I know.
It's crap. Let's talk a little bit about Apple. Let's go back to this because I think this is a fascinating story. I'm sure you've been following this. It seems there's a FaceTime bug. Talk about this a little bit.
Oh, apparently this FaceTime bug allows anyone to take a peek into your FaceTime conversation with somebody.
So,
that's what it amounts to. Yeah, it's a bug.
That's more than a bug.
You're right. It's a feature.
That's ugly. Yeah, right. That's right. We want to talk about Facebook and this unified messaging shenanigans.
I don't know anything about it.
So Mark Zuckerberg came out and he said he's planning to unify the underlying messaging infrastructure of its WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger. You can have end-to-end encryption, protecting messages from being viewed by anyone except the participants in the conversation. Now, is that what they're adding? And if that is what they're adding, why isn't that currently the situation to begin with?
What, end-to-end encryption?
Yeah.
Good point.
Twitter earnings came out. They had a better than expected 24% increase in the fourth quarter revenues, helped by growth in its video advertising business. Whatever. I don't know what that means, but okay. Again, I've never seen some of these. I hardly see an ad ever on Twitter, and I don't know what that's about. Maybe somehow I have a ad blocker that's built in or something. I don't know, into my head because I don't see them. You know, I used to see a few here and there. I haven't seen.
Somebody told me that certain people never get to see ads.
Why?
Because they want to keep those people active on the platform.
Google's paying more in EU fines that they're paying in taxes to the U.S. government. What's the story with the EU with the fines?
The EU is making the money on the taxes.
Yeah. Let's see. They paid increase in 2017. Google paid the EU $2.7 billion in fines and $5 billion in 2018. Seriously, I don't really follow this much. What the hell are they doing to get these kind of fines? You remember when somebody
That's
got
one big check?
Yeah, you remember when somebody got a $5 billion fine where it was actually would affect the stock?
Yeah.
What's a billion?
Yeah,
what's
that doesn't happen anymore.
Social media is under attack. Investors don't seem to care. Facebook and other big tech companies should be subject to a compulsory code of ethics to tackle the spread of fake news. I want to lock down so that we can't have...
What do you mean by lock down?
I guess get rid of the goddamn advertising and grow up already. Put it on a subscription basis.
Oh, that's never going to happen.
No, but that's... I find that if anybody could say anything they want and hide their identities...
Well, that's supposed to not be... that is not supposed to be an option on Facebook.
But it's happening. We have an insider scam. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Wednesday filed a lawsuit against a former Apple lawyer. This is the guy, I think, that was in charge of some of the securities area of Apple. Charged him with insider trading, that he traded ahead of the quarterly earnings announcements. So this guy, Gene Levoff, exploited his position as a senior lawyer and got information on several times over the years, made about $382,000 in illegal profits. And he avoided losses on his stock as well when things weren't good. So he would review the information and then make trades on it. What an idiot.
Yeah, that's not too bright.
Something that's interesting, this seems that if you search Google, I don't know if this happens. I'm going to search it right now. If you search Google for the best toilet paper in the world, let me copy that and paste it. Let's see what happens.
You're going to get somebody advertising on Google.
You get the picture of the Pakistani flag.
Oh, somebody's Google washed that thing?
Yep.
That's funny.
Yep. You get, they hijacked it as pictures. Let's see the images. Let's go to the images page. Yep. Pakistani flag everywhere. The whole thing. Yep.
Let me see if it works from my coast. Best toilet paper in the world. Yep. All Pakistani flags.
So it seems the results
there was on the page was just not the word, it's just text. It says, Google says no proof that search results for toilet paper showed Pakistan. And so there's a story. There's stories coming up now about it.
Yeah.
Google's in denial.
Yeah. There's more bad decisions being made, and I don't know where this is all going, but Senator Elizabeth Warren now is saying on Friday that if she's elected U.S. president, she would seek to break up tech companies like Amazon and Alphabet and Google and Facebook as part of a structural change to the sector aimed at promoting competition. I don't know. I don't get the whole thing. I mean, in Facebook too. What's the split on Facebook? The face and the book. What do you split on Facebook?
Well, I'm going to say Warren is irked because they've been banning her messages on Facebook.
Yeah, because it's probably against Facebook.
Yeah, I guess that would do it. Yeah.
Google announced Stadia Games and Entertainment, a new first-party game studio that they'll be creating exclusive games for the new platform. And they're going to have its own studio for Stadia exclusive games. So the stocks that I just thought of some stocks that you want to look at. Microsoft, because they're going to be competing against Xbox. EA Sports, EA. AMD, which was up 13% on this news today. And Take-Two. Speaking about observations, Facebook. Can it get any worse for Facebook? I mean, this newest thing that they put out, that they disclosed that they had a flaw on the social network that made passwords for hundreds of millions of users visible to employees. I mean, who does that? Isn't that like
I didn't know you could do it, but I guess their system can. Well,
they did that. Internally in their systems, they had readable passwords. That field wasn't encrypted at all. But of
Very
course,
screwy.
They were
well. Before you go on with that, this company seems to have a lot of this kind of amateur hour stuff going on, which I think is really much of their problem. Because there was an article in Boing Boing about this guy who, between 2013 and 2017, some period of very few years, he was just invoicing Facebook and Google for nothing. He didn't buy anything. He just set up fake accounts and started sending invoices in, and to the tune of $120 million plus.
Oh, and he got paid.
That he just cleaned up. He just kept getting checks.
That's the other thing is these are the companies that have all this AI going on, which
we know is a hoax,
total hoax. Or how about this one?
It's always been a hoax. It was a hoax in the 80s. With the 6th generation project or 5th generation project, whatever it was, and all the AI that was coming out of Stanford, which was all shelved and discarded. And then before that, I think in the 50s, there was a whole movement like this. It happens every 30 years or so.
Machine learning. That's the other. The
old operative word back in the 80s was expert systems. Remember that one?
I love that one. I haven't heard that one forever.
Oh, they got to reinvent. It's got to be Expert Systems 2.0. That's how you reintroduce the term.
I like it. AI.
Nouveau Expert Systems.
Yep. Well, the dispute is over, it seems, between Qualcomm and Apple. This news broke at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon today, maybe 3 o'clock. So I guess they said, what the hell's, why are we fighting this? Why are we spending all this money with the lawyers? You got good stuff. Let's just kind of work together.
Well, Qualcomm's definitely leading the way in this area.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was good for both companies. I mean, there's enough of this stuff already, but we'll see what happens from there. Facebook. I'm pretty done with Facebook. I've been talking about it and I haven't done it yet about pulling my account. Not that that's going to do anything to them, but I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the whole social network part of it, the crap that I see on it, the stuff that you see over and over again. And but you don't want to pull it because then you look like an antisocial jerk.
I don't know. Do I look like an antisocial jerk to you?
Well, let's pose that question to the chat room. Let's find out what they say about that. 100%. Let's see here. So far, I'm getting about 100% that you are antisocial.
Hey.
No. It seems that Zuckerberg was using user data as, I guess, a pawn in negotiating some of the deals that he did between 2011 and 2015, sharing some of this data, giving some of this stuff away.
Yeah, he thought it was a great idea.
It's evil. After the Google numbers that we saw, things are going to be a little bit, concerning. Facebook numbers, frankly, I was not impressed with. I saw a recent chart. I should have probably put it in the show notes here, but I saw a recent chart that showed the revenue growth the last 10 years or so for Facebook and Apple and Google and a couple other companies. And they're all declining. This is one of the worst periods for Apple. And they came out with earnings tonight. The worst period for Apple in terms of revenue growth. I think they were down 5% from a year ago. Yeah. Well, let's get back to the markets for a minute. Give you a quick market update here on what's going on DH Unplugged. Well, we saw that techs were getting hacksawed at the beginning of the week as the executive order from President Trump putting the kibosh on Huawei that they are now a national security
risk,
some kind of something. Right. They're spies. They're terrible people. They're every single part of their infrastructure seems to be a device for spying somehow. And then all of a sudden, all the suppliers, they have some crazy number, 80% of the smartphone market, or some ridiculous number.
They have a very large number, yes. That we don't see them in this country. Although you can buy them on Amazon. I think 40% of all patents on a yearly basis are from Huawei.
Wow,
they've gone nuts.
Wow, that's like the old IBM. This is why semiconductors took a hit after reaching a high in April. The semiconductor index is now down 16%. I think it was up about 2% today. Chinese stocks are also taking a hit, those in the technology sector. And I have a little chart here I put together for you.
Let's see.
It's a 2x4. So this is a smattering of Chinese stocks in the technology area since pretty much the beginning of this year. And for the most part, they all look pretty ugly over the last 4 weeks. We saw tech stocks get slammed this week. So Facebook, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple were all singled out in various reports indicating that the companies could face antitrust scrutiny by the Department of Justice and or Federal Trade Commission. Of course, the whole issue with Facebook with the political ads, and we got to look at, security and privacy, and we got to look at, tinkering and trying to change elections. All they're concerned about is the elections, of course. They can give a damn about the rest of the stuff, let's be honest. Politicians just don't want to disrupt their cushy life in the Senate or the House. So all of this is kind of going into the discussion that, number one, it started off as a concern about slowdown and high valuations. And now we're starting to see this talk about antitrust and potential other remember something. Facebook went in front of the Senate and the House and the Congress, and they were talking about, hey, we need help. Remember that whole discussion by Zuckerberg?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we need help. I'm like, oh, boy, that was bad. Why would you do that? You don't ask these guys for help. It's like going into the lion cage and saying, hey, palsy wowsy. Probably not a good idea. You're going to get nicked. So